Chapter 794. Following the stairs, the 9 of them walked up to the 33rd floor. Lin Yuxuan was walking at the front. Under the attack of Yi Chen's bewitching mirror shattering, he had been wounded the most. But, different from the cold-looking young man, his wound was not one that went through his body. Therefore, after swallowing a precious pellet that he had prepared himself, he had almost recovered. As a half-step king warrior, some of the pellets that could heal wounds in a short period of time were still available to him. But, it was also because of this that the top-rank soulstones and treasures were even more important to him, since the consumption was way too high. Yi Chen had his evil shattering sword on his waist as he followed at the back with Murong Qingcheng. The 33rd floor. I am afraid it will not be that easy. Yi Chen had a feeling that the 4 pseudo-extreme rank evil shattering items and the painting were not just randomly placed on the 32nd floor. They must have some other purpose. The tower was full of evil qi, and up until now, no one had run into any danger. But, this unknown 33rd floor might be full of danger. Yi Chen had given up on the other 3 evil shattering items because of this reason. After all, he could not control all 4 of them by himself. Even if he could, he would not be able to use their full power. And for Murong Qingcheng and the Lady in Yellow, one had the perfect demi-demon bloodline, and the other was an unknown beast. Naturally, they would not be able to touch the evil shattering items. At the end of the stairs, everyone stopped. In front of them was a stone door. The surface of the stone door was engraved with complicated lines. These lines were of different colors, and there were a total of 5 colors: gold, cyan, green, red, and yellow. The 5 colored lines intertwined with each other and finally converged at the center of the stone door. There was a groove there, and there was a faint 5-colored light flickering, connecting the 5 colored lines. This is a 5 elemental spell. It needs 5 elemental energies to open. Jin Wanshuang had done some research on spells, so he said, "There are 9 of us here, and only 3 of us have trained 5 elemental Jin Yuan. We cannot gather all 5 elemental energies." The elder frowned. Jin Wanshuang had trained metal element Jin Yuan, Lin Yuxuan had wood element Jin Yuan, and the lady in yellow had water element Jin Yuan. The remaining fire and earth element Jin Yuan would not be enough. Yi Chen said, "You should be able to use something else to replace it, right? Like energy crystals?" Jin Wanshuang nodded. Indeed. Not all elemental Jin Yuan is needed. Elemental energy crystals will do as well. With that, Jin Wanshuang took a step forward and said, "I'll pour in metal Jin Yuan first and see how much is needed." Placing his right hand inside the groove, Jin Wanshuang circulated his Jin Yuan and slowly poured it in. As Jin Wanshuang poured in his metal attribute Jin Yuan, the golden lines on the stone door suddenly lit up and slowly extended. After a while, Jin Wanshuang said, "This won't do. This 5 elemental formation requires too much energy. Even if I use up all of my Jin Yuan, it won't be enough." Everyone realized that the golden lines on the stone door had only lit up by less than a tenth. It looked like it was still lacking 90%. Looks like I'll have to use energy crystals. The 5 elements formation required too much energy. Even if there were 5 people here who cultivated true essence of the 5 elements, it would not be enough. In other words, if the 9 of them had not obtained a large number of energy crystals, it would have been impossible for them to enter the 33rd floor. The others would not have been able to do it either. How about this? Everyone gather 900 metal energy crystals and 1000 wood, water, fire, and earth energy crystals respectively. The excess will be returned to everyone, and if it's not enough, everyone will make up for it. Energy crystals were extremely precious. 1 upper-grade energy crystal was equivalent to 1000 upper-grade spirit stones. Asking 1 or 2 people to provide it was obviously unfair. After gathering all the energy crystals, Jin Wanshuang threw them in. One could see that the groove at the center of the stone door could actively absorb the 5 elemental energy from the energy crystals. Meanwhile, the 5 colored lines on the stone door gradually lit up. With the groove as the center, they spread out in all directions, slow and steady. Not enough. Gather another 100 energy crystals for each element. Jin Wanshuang turned around and said, There was still a short section of the 5 colored lines on the stone door that had yet to light up. Here. Everyone gathered another 500 energy crystals, 100 for each element. Receiving the crystals, Jin Wanchuang threw them all in. Buzz. The 5 colored lines on the stone door all lit up, and the entire stone door shone with a 5-colored radiance. The radiance interweaved together, forming a complex 5 elements formation in the air. Rumble. The stone door opened with a sound. This 5 elements formation is indeed a glutton. It took 5,400 energy crystals. Derba made a face. 5,400 energy crystals would be equivalent to 5,400,000 top-rank spirit stones. Normal life and death realm warriors would not be able to break through it in a short period of time. According to the energy that the 5 elements formation had devoured, Yi Chen thought of something else. With the protection of this 5 elements formation, not to mention half-step king warriors, even normal life and death realm warriors would not be able to break through it in a short period of time. As for whether or not they would be able to tear open the surreal space and go in directly, he did not know. Woo! The stone door opened completely, and a wave of powerful evil wind blew out. Although the 9 of them had activated their protective Jin Yuan, they were still blown back a couple of steps by this evil wind. The blood in their bodies seemed to have been frozen, and the coldness was so intense that it even threatened their souls. What the 9 of them did not know was that the second they opened the stone door, a 5-colored light beam shot out from the top of the tower. All of a sudden, it broke through the 300,000 meters deep ocean and arrived above the ocean. It then kept going up, tearing apart the surprising sky and the extreme void sky. No one knew where it would end up at. Within a radius of tens of thousands of miles, everyone could see this 5-colored beam of light that connected the bottom of the sea and the sky. Most of the people on Four Corner Island that were tens of thousands of miles away could also sense the fluctuations here. However, because they were too far away, they had no way of knowing where the fluctuations were coming from. 5 elements energy. Far away from the Four Corner Island, a black chi appeared, and the demi-demon king of the demi-demon race appeared. He closed his eyes and carefully sensed the vibration of the 5 elements energy coming from far away. This is the power vibration after the seal was broken. There must be some kind of great treasure appearing. The elder in black hesitated for a second, but he soon made up his mind to give up on looking for the perfect beauty demon bloodline for now. This kind of fortune could only be found by luck, so he would get the treasure first before looking for the bloodline. Pop! The black chi disappeared, and the elder in black disappeared from where he was standing. The 9 of them still did not know that their opening of the 5 elements spell had already attracted the attention of a demi-demon king. Right now, they had already entered the 33rd floor. The moment everyone entered the 33rd level, all the always-on lamps lit up. At the same time, everyone's gazes fell on the 5 coffins in the center of the 33rd level. Of these 5 coffins, the one in the middle was the largest, and there were 4 smaller coffins surrounding it at its 4 corners. It was unknown what kind of wood the coffins were made of, but the evil chi coming out of them was very dense. Even from far away, one could feel that the evil chi was trying to invade their bodies and freeze their blood. There is a great item on each coffin. The twins' eyes brightened. If the items on the 32nd floor were all pseudo-extreme rank items, then what about the 33rd floor? Not to mention the others, just the one in the middle would most likely be an extreme rank item. Extreme rank item. Apart from Yi Chen and a few others, everyone else's eyes were burning with passion, wishing that they could rush over and snatch it. The first one to move was Lin Yuxuan. Among the 6 people fighting for the items on the 32nd floor, he was the only one who did not get one, which made him very unwilling. In the past, he had always had a smooth sailing life. Whenever he joined a team, he would be the most dazzling existence. However, in this team, he realized that he was at the bottom. None of them were weaker than him, and there were even a few who were obviously stronger than him. This was something that he could not accept no matter what. Shoo! His protective Jin Yuan shone as Lin Yuxuan rushed toward the coffin closest to him. Don't be impulsive. Jin Wanchuang and the elder warned Lin Yuxuan at the same time. Lin Yuxuan sneered, but his speed did not decrease. Got it. With a flash, Lin Yuxuan appeared next to a coffin on the outer edge and grabbed the item on it. It was a battle halberd, one of the weapons he wanted the most. So cold. Grabbing the halberd, Lin Yuxuan suddenly shivered. This halberd seemed to be made from 10,000 years old black ice. An extremely cold yin qi flowed along his palm and extended to his arm. His entire right arm was covered in a thin layer of blue ice. It was bone-chilling. Boom. All of a sudden, the lid of the coffin in front of Lin Yuxuan flew up, as if someone had blasted it away from the inside. Shortly after, a silhouette sat up. It was a middle-aged man with an extremely pale face. His eyes were wide open, but there were no pupils, only the whites of his eyes. Not good. Lin Yuxuan knew that things had gotten serious, so he hurried to retreat. However, with the yin qi invading his body, his reaction speed was a bit slower. Pa. The middle-aged man's hand grabbed Lin Yuxuan's right arm and pulled. Ah! Lin Yuxuan screamed out. His entire right arm had been torn off, but there was no blood, as it had all been frozen by the yin qi. After tearing off Lin Yuxuan's right arm, the battle halberd landed in the middle-aged man's hand. He jumped out and waved the halberd in the air, cutting off Lin Yuxuan's head. Resurrection of the dead. Yi Chen squinted his eyes, his hand gripping the handle of the evil vanquishing sword. The middle-aged man grinned, and an endless suction force burst out from his body. Lin Yuxuan's warm blood spurted out from the cut on his neck and was sucked into the middle-aged man's mouth. As the blood flowed into his body, everyone noticed that the middle-aged man's face was a bit rosier. At least, his skin was not as pale as a dummy's, it was more elastic. Boom, boom, boom. The middle-aged man stood firmly on the ground. He waved his hand, and except for the coffin in the middle, the other 3 coffins were all blown away. The treasures on the coffins fell into the coffins. The next moment, a shocking scene occurred. In each of the 3 coffins, a figure sat up. They were the evil old man, the stocky woman, and the skinny young man. The 3 of them held their respective treasures and jumped out of the coffins. They stood side by side with the middle-aged man. Endless yin qi erupted from their bodies, freezing everything. Chapter 795. How is this possible? People who have been dead for at least 10,000 years can still come back to life. This goes against the great Tao, and cannot be tolerated by the heavens. The aged old man mumbled. Jin Wanshuang said, according to the records, True Water Palace was destroyed 15,000 years ago. In other words, these people have been dead for almost 15,000 years. 15,000 years. Even the bones of life and death kings would have turned into fossils by now. These 4 don't seem to be life and death kings. Yi Chen sized up the 4 with his soul eyes. He discovered that they didn't have Jin Yuan or any other kind of energy on them, only yin qi that could freeze everything. This yin qi originated from their bodies and had already fused with their bodies. As long as the yin qi was not extinguished, their bodies would not perish. As for whether they had consciousness or not, only the heavens knew. The yellow-robed woman analyzed, they should have been sealed in a coffin by some kind of evil secret art. Although they are already dead, the vitality in their bodies is not extinguished. After 10,000 years of nurturing, they have already fused with the yin qi, becoming another kind of life form. Not a person, not a corpse, but another kind of life form? Everybody frowned. This was beyond their imagination. Stop acting mysterious. Watch me, Dea Ba, destroy them. Dea Ba stepped out and crossed his blades, slashing out a cross-shaped blade light at the leading middle-aged man. Puff. It was unknown whether the middle-aged man's reaction was too slow or Dea Ba's attack speed was too fast, but the cross-shaped blade light accurately struck his chest, leaving a cross-shaped wound. Hazy yin qi pervaded the wound, but no blood could be seen. Recovered. The aged old man mumbled. Everybody looked at the middle-aged man's wound. The hazy yin qi had turned into flesh and blood, healing the wound. From the outside, not a trace of it could be seen. The middle-aged man lowered his head and looked at his chest. It seemed that Dea Ba's cross-shaped blade light had awakened his consciousness. He then let out a long roar that sounded like a ghost's cry and a wolf's howl. The lamp on the 33rd floor was covered in a layer of frost. The light flickered, But it did not go out in the end. A formless sound wave spread out toward Yi Chen and the rest. Besides Yi Chen, Murong Qingcheng, and the yellow-robed woman, the others all groaned as their souls shook. They did not have Yi Chen's 5 times stronger soul power, his destruction sword spirit and immortal sword spirit, Murong Qingcheng's perfect demi-demon bloodline, her demonic soul, and the yellow-robed woman's unfathomable power. Even with the soul membrane of a demi-king, it would be hard to defend against the sound wave. Without a sound, the middle-aged man disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Da Erba. Holding the halberd, he stabbed towards Da Erba's head. Piss off. Da Ba did not expect the middle-aged man's speed to be this fast, so he was caught off guard. The barbarian's wild nature made him forget about life and death. He crossed his blades and attacked toward the middle-aged man's neck without caring about anything else. The two had started a battle of life and death. Shoo! The middle-aged man's battle spear pierced through Da Ba's protective Jinyuan layer and left a small bloody hole on his forehead. Da Ba's blades had also almost cut off the middle-aged man's head. The crossed blade marks almost went through his chest. Brother! Da Xiong roared as he held the axe in one hand and the jade ruler in the other, attacking toward the middle-aged man's body. The huge axe had only made a small crack on the middle-aged man's body, while the jade ruler seemed to melt some of his yin qi like snow in the spring. The middle-aged man looked shocked as he backed out hurriedly. Da Xiong chased after him, waving his axe and jade ruler in the air, covering the middle-aged man. Shoo! The middle-aged man's body suddenly collapsed, turning into a hazy yin qi and returning to his original position, standing together with the other 3. The wounds on his body had already healed completely. However, if one observed carefully, one could see that the yin qi was slightly thinner. The jade ruler can cut off his yin qi. Yi Chen came to a conclusion and exchanged a look with Murong Qingcheng. Brother! Da Xiong gave up on chasing the middle-aged man and returned to Da Ba, shaking his body. Da Ba's pupils were enlarged, and his eyes were lifeless. On his forehead, there was a fingernail-sized bloody hole, from which yin qi kept coming out. Dead. The elder shook his head in pity. That moment had passed too fast, and they could not help in time. Fuck off. Da Xiong cursed loudly, and then burst into tears. I don't think we should stay here for long. The cold-looking young man frowned and said. The lady in yellow nodded. As long as the yin qi is not destroyed, their bodies will not be destroyed. Besides that, there is still a coffin that has not been opened. Da Ba's body was extremely powerful, but it still could not block out the middle-aged man's attack. It was not hard to imagine how powerful the middle-aged man was. Of course, it was also related to the fact that the halberd was a pseudo-extreme rank item. Besides the 4 middle-aged men, the one in the middle coffin might be even more powerful. It might even be the body of the mysterious Yin King. I am afraid that we will not be able to get out, Murong Qingcheng said suddenly. How could we not be able to get out? Everyone turned around. No one knew when, but the entrance to the 33rd floor had been sealed up by 4 coffin lids. The coffin lids were surrounded by yin qi. Boom! Jin Wan held the stick with both of his hands and threw out an attack. The golden light shone brightly, and the coffin lids kept shaking. The yin qi was destroyed by the golden light. Damn it! The elder raised his purple-gold bowl, and a beam of purple-gold light shot out from the bowl, shining on the yin qi on the coffin lids. With a sizzling sound, the yin qi seemed to have met its nemesis and was destroyed. But what made them frown was that no matter how much yin qi was destroyed, there would always be an equal amount of yin qi pouring out of the coffin lids. It seemed like the lids were the source of the yin qi. During that time, Yi Chen took out his evil shattering sword and threw out a sword attack on the yin qi. The evil shattering sword was indeed the most powerful one among the 4 evil shattering items. A huge amount of yin qi was destroyed, and it almost reached the coffin lids. But in the end, it was too weak. Seeing Yi Chen and the rest attacking the coffin lids, the middle-aged man and the other 3 moved at the same time. They turned into blurry yin qi and attacked the group. If they did not defend, their blood might be frozen by the yin qi, and they would be killed. Therefore, the group had to give up on attacking the coffin lids and turned around to fight them. According to the previous situation, everyone already knew that the evil vanquishing treasures were the bane of this kind of evil beings. The 4 people with the evil vanquishing treasures all split up, each fighting one of them. The other 3 supported them from the side, wearing down their opponent's yin energy. His brother Dea Ba had been killed, so Dea Xiong hated the middle-aged man to the bone. He put away his huge axe and crazily attacked him with his jade ruler. The one helping him was the cold-looking youngster. On the other side, Jin Wanshuang was fighting against the bulky woman alone, while the elder and the yellow-robed lady were fighting against the evil elder. As for Murong Qingcheng, she was naturally with Yi Chen, fighting against the skinny youngster. Dark Devour. Murong Qingcheng formed a seal with both of her hands, creating a black light ball that was continuously rotating beside the skinny youngster, trying to devour him. However, the yin qi on his body was too powerful, and it froze the black light ball instead. Whoosh! The skinny youngster turned into yin qi and attacked Murong Qingcheng. Cut! With the evil shattering sword in his hand, Yi Chen took a step forward and threw out a sword attack at the yin qi. With a shoo sound, a lot of the yin qi was cut down, and the skinny youngster's body appeared again, fighting against Yi Chen once again. He had no time to deal with Murong Qingcheng. The evil shattering sword and the weapon in the skinny youngster's hand were both pseudo-extreme rank items. One contained evil shattering power, while the other contained evil power. They were like fire and water, but Yi Chen found out that no matter how much yin qi he took away from the skinny youngster, the 33 floors of the tower would still have yin qi to nourish him, making his efforts futile. Let me see how much yin qi you have. Yi Chen squinted his eyes as he waved the evil shattering sword in his hand to the extreme, performing the spiritual sword attack. Shoo, 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 shoo. In terms of battling techniques, how could the skinny youngster compete with Yi Chen? His body was cut into pieces by the sword qi, and he was at a complete disadvantage. Waning Moon. After throwing out hundreds of sword attacks in one breath, Yi Chen waved his arm, and a crescent-shaped sword qi flew out, slicing through the skinny youngster's body. The power of that sword attack was way too powerful, and the skinny youngster was cut in half. Half of his yin qi was gone, and his power was greatly reduced. Besides Yi Chen's side, the others were also starting to gain the upper hand. After all, they had evil shattering items, which could naturally suppress evil beings. If it were not for the fact that the opponent had yin qi to nourish him, he would have been beaten to a pulp already. Break. The evil shattering stick in Jin Wanshuang's hand was extremely aggressive. It shattered half of the bulky woman's body, and a huge amount of gold light swept out. Collect. The elder held the purple gold arms bowl, and beams of purple gold light shot out, turning the evil elder in front of him into 1,000 holes. Occasionally, some of the yin qi would be sucked into the purple gold arms bowl and turned into nothingness. Dea Xiong's jade ruler could be used for protection. In close combat, the middle-aged man was not his opponent, and his yin qi was shaved off layer after layer by the jade ruler. As the yin qi in the tower became thinner and thinner, the coffin in the middle of the 5 coffins started to move without a sound. Since everyone was busy fighting, no one noticed it. The coffin lid did not move obviously, but it started to move inch by inch, and the movement was getting bigger and bigger. While the 7 of them were fighting, Shi Xiaobao and the rest were blocked by the coffin lid at the entrance. No matter how hard they tried, they could not move the coffin lid at all. Damn it! Shi Xiaobao, who had turned into his real body, roared and shot out a gold light at the coffin lid. With a rumbling sound, the 6 of them were blown back by the coffin lid's power, returning to the 32nd floor. Outside the mysterious Yin Tower, an elder in black robes appeared out of nowhere. His eyes looked at the top of the 33rd floor, and his body suddenly disappeared. After a while, he was jolted back again. I can't tear open the surreal space and enter. The elder in black revealed a surprised expression. Well, the more mysterious this tower is, the more precious the treasure is. The elder in black chuckled and stepped into the first floor of the tower, gradually disappearing into the darkness. Chapter 796. Bewitching Mirror Shattering. On the 33rd floor of the tower, Yi Chen had already used up 1/5 of the skinny teenager's evil qi. This 1/5 would not go down no matter what, since the teenager's recovery speed was only a bit slower than his own. Plus, Yi Chen would not be able to keep killing him for a long time, since the latter was very powerful and had a pseudo-extreme rank evil weapon. He would still be a threat to Yi Chen. Seeing that it would be hard to kill him with other methods, Yi Chen took advantage of the fact that the skinny teenager's evil chi was at its weakest and performed his space-profound sword attack, bewitching mirror-shattering. As he waved out a sword attack, the space around the skinny teenager twisted. His whole body seemed to have been embedded in a mirror. Even if he turned into a hazy evil chi and tried to run around, he would not be able to get out. Boom! The mirror was shattered, and the skinny teenager was twisted into nothingness by the space power. Chem. Yi Chen squeezed his eyes. In his sight, a hazy shadow suddenly appeared. It was the skinny teenager. His body had already become so faint that it could not be seen with naked eyes. If it were not for Yi Chen's sharp eyes, he would not have been able to notice this change. The hazy shadow kept twisting and changing its shape, as if it was trying to return to its peak. But eventually, it failed and disappeared into nothingness. Finally dead. As long as the evil chi was not destroyed, the body would not be destroyed. It sounded powerful indeed, but as long as the opponent's evil chi was destroyed in a short period of time, he would not have enough power to absorb the evil chi around him. Then, he would be able to kill him for good. Of course, it would be very hard if the power difference was not that big. Plus, he could not be hit by the opponent's attack. Once he was hit, the evil chi would invade his body, and that would be the end of him. Yi Chen was able to kill the skinny teenager because he had the evil shattering sword and the bewitching mirror shattering. Without any of them, he would not be able to succeed. Woo! Letting out a breath, Yi Chen glanced over and noticed Lin Yuxuan's dead body not far away. Almost subconsciously, Yi Chen reached out his hand and sucked Lin Yuxuan's storage ring over, then threw it into his own storage ring. Murong Qingcheng leaned over and said, "This yin qi is really hard to deal with. It's not an ordinary yin qi, it seems to have a life of its own." Yi Chen said, "Vitality can give birth to life, such as wind spirits and thunder spirits. Yin energy should also be able to give birth to yin spirits and evil spirits. In some places where yin qi gathered, it was possible for evil spirits to be born. However, the strength of these evil spirits was not high. They could only cause trouble for low-level martial artists and ordinary people. If they encountered high-level martial artists, they would be helpless. However, the evil spirits that were born in some places with extreme yin qi were especially terrifying. The thin young man and the other three were not people, nor were they corpses. They might be a life form that had fused with the evil spirits. Yi Chen could kill the skinny youngster, but the other three couldn't. Although they had evil vanquishing artifacts, they didn't have the means to erase a large amount of yin qi in one go. From this, it could be seen how terrifying Yi Chen's bewitching mirror shattering was. Thunder devour. From a great distance, Yi Chen shot out a lightning ball towards the bulky woman who was fighting against Jin Wanshuang. There was a loud bang. A huge amount of lightning shot out, and the bulky woman's body became a lot more illusory. This was the sign of consuming too much yin qi. Yi Chen's thunder devour contained a powerful thunder power, which was the bane of yin qi. On the other hand, the destruction sword intent was the bane of all things. Combined with the evil vanquishing sword's evil shattering power, its effect was not any weaker than bewitching mirror shattering, and might even be stronger. The reason why he didn't use it on the skinny youngster was because that was a head-on battle, and the latter had a pseudo-extreme rank evil artifact, which made the thunder devour ineffective. However, it was different now. This was a sneak attack. This was a rare opportunity. Jin Wanshuang's demon subduing pestle turned into beams of golden light as he threw out dozens of attacks at the bulky woman. The bulky woman couldn't even run away, and could only slowly erase her yin qi bit by bit, eventually following the skinny youngster's footsteps. "Many thanks." Jin Wanshuang nodded at Yi Chen. With two dead, the remaining two were naturally nothing to worry about. Under the combined attacks of the four evil shattering artifacts, the four evil beings that were neither human nor corpses turned into ashes. It was worth mentioning that after the evil treasure in the opponent's hand lost its master, cracks appeared on it. Then, with a bang, it exploded, transforming into thick yin qi. The yin qi converged on the treasure on the lid of the coffin in the middle of the 33rd floor and then entered it. Things are not looking good. Only then did everyone realize that the lid of the coffin in the middle had moved quite a bit to the side, and a gap had been opened up. Open the exit quickly. The elder's hair stood on end as he held the purple gold arms bowl and turned around to attack the coffin lid. Beams of purple gold light shot out. The others did not say a word as they attacked the coffin lid with all of their power. Under the continuous attacks of the seven, the coffin lid kept on shaking, and the yin qi became chaotic. Right then, the lady in yellow's expression also turned serious as she took out a huge dark blue rapier from her storage ring. The aura coming from it was not any weaker than Yi Chen's evil shattering sword or the other evil shattering artifacts. It was obviously a pseudo-extreme rank artifact. Holding the rapier in her right hand, the lady in yellow yelled and threw out an attack onto the coffin lid. Rumble. The power of this attack was even more powerful than Yi Chen's bewitching mirror shattering. The intense dark blue light was like a sun that rose up slowly, evaporating a huge amount of yin qi. This is. Everyone looked at the lady in yellow with shock. She is a top half-step king warrior. Murong Qingcheng said with a low voice. Yi Chen nodded. She has hidden it well. With a pseudo-extreme rank artifact, even normal top half-step king warriors would not be able to compete with her. A pseudo-extreme rank artifact could increase one's power exponentially. The lady in yellow was already a top half-step king warrior. With a pseudo-extreme rank artifact, she could be said to be unbeatable under the life and death realm. Unless the opponent was also a top half-step king warrior with a pseudo-extreme rank artifact, it would be impossible for them to compete with her. The coffin lid started to shake, and the gap between them was getting bigger and bigger. Right at that moment, the yin qi in the 33rd floor of the mysterious yin tower suddenly started spinning violently. Then, like a funnel, it poured into the coffin in the middle of the floor. Such a powerful sound made everyone's body feel cold. Their protective Jin Yuan started to freeze. Hurry! Jin Wanshuang yelled. Boom! 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 5 different colored lights shone together. Right then, everyone did not hold back at all. Unfortunately, they were still one step too late. Boom! The lid of the coffin in the middle was blown away, and a blurry human figure appeared out of it. He reached out his right hand, grabbing the flying great weapon in the air. Yi Chen continued to attack as he looked back. He could not help but feel his heart skip a beat. It was out. This time, it was an expressionless elder in yellow robes. His clothes were torn and tattered, looking like they could be eroded at any second. He was holding a strange-looking weapon in his hand, which looked like 2 great swords that were placed side by side. There were 2 sword tips, and a cold sword light was shooting out of the 2 sword tips, freezing the surreal space. It is the mysterious Yin King. It must be her. This time, we will die for sure. The elder was almost desperate. Judging from the powerful evil qi coming from the elder in yellow, he was definitely a former life and death realm warrior. That strange-looking weapon must be an extreme rank great weapon as well. Either one of them would be able to kill them instantly, not to mention having both at the same time. Die! 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 Different from the 4 evil beings before, the mysterious Yin King could only say simple words. But it was these simple words that made everyone face a huge disaster. After the first word was said, all 7 of them were blown backward, pressing against the wall. Their heads were spinning, and their hearts were beating 10 times faster than normal. All of their blood was flowing backward, and their limbs were numb. After the second word was said, besides Yi Chen, Murong Qingcheng, the lady in yellow, and Da Xiong, the other 3 were bleeding out of all of their orifices. Their hearts were beating like a drum. Soul Sound Wave Attack. Yi Chen was shocked. Soul Sound Wave Attack was to let the soul spread out in the form of sound waves. It could not only hurt the soul, but also cause a huge pressure on the body. If one of the 2 was weaker, then both of them would be killed. It did not matter if it was the death of the soul or the death of the body. Immortal, suppress. The first thing that came to Yi Chen's mind was not himself, but Murong Qingcheng. Although her body was a perfect demi-demon body, her soul would not be that powerful. It was very possible that she would be killed by her soul. At this moment of life and death, inside Yi Chen's soul ocean, the immortal sword spirit that had not made a breakthrough for a long time finally condensed into a rank 4 immortal sword spirit. But, right then, Yi Chen did not know about the breakthrough at all. He only knew that he had to push his immortal sword spirit with all of his power and release the eternal immortal sword intent to protect Murong Qingcheng. The third word of death had finally arrived. Boom. 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 Jin Wanshuang, the elder, and the cold-looking teenagers' heads exploded, blood spraying out everywhere. This was the result of their soul shattering, and their Jin Yuan going out of control, rushing around inside their bodies crazily. Pooh. Although the lady in yellow was a top half-step king warrior, and her soul membrane was extremely powerful, it was still not enough to block out the mysterious Yin King's soul sound wave attack. She puked out a mouthful of blood, her face extremely pale. On the other hand, Murong Qingcheng had Yi Chen's immortal sword intent to protect her, so her soul would not shatter. But, this soul sound wave had still gone through the immortal sword intent and landed on Murong Qingcheng's soul ocean, knocking her out. As for Yi Chen, he was also suffering bitterly. His soul power was 5 times that of normal people, but because he did not have a soul membrane, the soul sound wave directly rushed into his sea of soul, sweeping around crazily and creating huge waves. Sensing their master's danger, the destruction sword spirit and the immortal sword spirit both shone with a bright sword intent light, lighting up his soul ocean and clearing out the abnormal soul sound wave. Among the 7, only Dea Xiong did not have any problems, which was really strange. Am I going to die here? Yi Chen had finally made it through the soul sound wave. Looking at the mysterious evil king floating in the air, a bitter expression appeared on his face. The latter had only uttered the word die 3 times, and they had almost been killed. If he had attacked with a single attack, they would have been dead for sure. Boom. A sudden change occurred. The coffin lid that sealed the entrance was struck by a tremendous force and flew inward. Chapter 797. An elder in black robes, who was not tall but had an aura as deep as the ocean, walked in. The black-robed old man clearly did not expect to see a yellow-robed old man floating in the air on the 33rd floor after clearing the obstacles. The yellow-robed old man's clothes were in a weathered state. Dense yin qi wafted from his body, freezing the surrounding space. Evil Spirit King. No, he looks like an evil spirit, but not. As the demi-demon king of the demi-demon race, the elder in black had seen a lot. He could tell that this elder in yellow was not just an evil spirit. He was a life form that was even more evil than an evil spirit. Once he was exposed in the normal world, he would be attacked by the god's thunder. However, inside this mysterious Yin Tower, the destiny was blocked, and he could not sense his existence. Apart from the yellow-robed old man, the black-robed old man also sensed 3 other living beings. He turned his head to look, and his eyes couldn't help but brighten up. Among the 3 lucky survivors, the energy fluctuation emitted by that beautiful woman was actually the devil power. Devil power could only be cultivated by those with the perfect demonic bloodline, and there were only a handful of people with the perfect demonic bloodline. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that this woman was the one with the perfect demonic bloodline that his clansmen were talking about. He didn't expect that when he was looking for the perfect demonic bloodline, she would come to him on her own accord. It was like wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it without even looking for it. Demi-Demon King, Yi Chen and the girl in yellow squinted their eyes. Only the Demi-Demon King's Jin Yuan would have demon qi that could not be hidden. In other words, the demon qi was already the element of their Jin Yuan. For example, the fire element Jin Yuan could be called demon fire element Jin Yuan, which was much more powerful than normal fire element Jin Yuan. This place was not good to stay for long. Yi Chen had a bad premonition. The opponent was most likely here for Murong. Right now, Murong was still in a coma, so he could only rely on himself. Carrying Murong with his left hand, Yi Chen stood up. He stared at the elder in black and moved his body. Pa. When he passed by Dea Xiong, he was knocked down to the ground by Yi Chen. It turned out that Dea Xiong's physical body was extremely powerful. Although the soul sound wave of the elder in yellow had shattered his soul, it did not cause any damage to his physical body. Although he looked normal on the outside, he was already dead. "Where do you want to go?" The black-clothed old man slowly stretched out his right hand and grinned. "Leave this place." Yi Chen secretly gathered his vital energy, his eyes subconsciously glancing at the evil vanquishing sword in front of him. "If my guess is correct, you've killed many of my demonic human clan's clansmen. Now, you can't go anywhere. This will be your grave." As he spoke, the black-robed old man made a grabbing motion with his right hand. Just half a step, and Yi Chen would be able to step on the evil shattering sword. However, right then, he and Murong were both bound by an invisible power. Their feet were floating in the air, unable to move at all. The power of a demonic human king's grab had already surpassed the limit of a half-step king warrior. Without experiencing it for themselves, it would be hard to imagine how powerful a life and death realm demonic human king would be. That kind of power had already reached the level where it could do whatever it wanted. Clatter. The black-robed old man's power was very ingenious, not harming Murong at all. However, it made Yi Chen feel as if he had been coiled by a huge python. His bones creaked as if they couldn't bear the burden. The Zhen Yuan he had just gathered was forcibly cut off from its source, and was completely blocked. On the right side, the yellow-robed lady held her breath as she watched this scene. She was inwardly regretting that Yi Chen couldn't see through her, but how could she see through Yi Chen? The fact proved that her intuition was right. Yi Chen was far more mysterious than she had imagined. Everyone had died, and only she and Yi Chen were safe and sound. Moreover, she was a strongest half-step king warrior, while Yi Chen was only at the peak of late sea of Soul Realm. Unfortunately, such a genius was about to die, and she herself couldn't even protect herself. She could only hope that this demonic human king would be in a better mood. At the critical moment, the yellow-robed old man, mysterious Yin King, saved Yi Chen's life. Die. The mysterious Yin King sensed that the black-robed old man was not normal, so he held a strange weapon in his right hand and waved it down. That horrifying chi power seemed like it was going to cut open the surreal space inside the tower. If the black-robed old man did not let go of Yi Chen and use his full power, he might be wounded by that attack. Letting go of Yi Chen, the black-robed old man pushed out with both of his hands. Boom! The power from the mysterious Yin King was cold and evil, while the demonic Zhen Yuan from the black-robed old man was aggressive and dark. With the two powers clashing together, it was like the end of the world. Yi Chen did not even need to look to know that in the middle of the 33rd floor, there was a destructive tornado coming toward him. If he did not get away from the 33rd floor in time, he would most likely be killed. Run! Without thinking, Yi Chen stepped on the evil shattering sword and performed his defensive sword spell. The pseudo-extreme rank great sword turned into a beam of light, shooting out of the 33rd floor within a second. He did not even have the time to pick up his storage ring, because any delay would cost him his life. As he flew on his sword, a layer of white cuticle appeared on his body as well, which was indeed the dragon bone defense layer. Outside of the dragon bone defense layer was his protective Zhen Yuan, which was imprinted with bronze symbols. With the two layers of defense layered together, it was his most powerful defense. Yi Chen was fast, but the lady in yellow was not slow either. At this moment, she finally revealed her identity as a demonic beast. With a twist of her body, she transformed into a giant snake that seemed to be made of yellow crystal. The thickest part of this giant yellow crystal snake was as thick as a waist, and the thinnest part was its neck, which was only as thick as a calf. On its head, there was a small yellow horn that flickered with a pure, flawless yellow light. Shoo! The yellow crystal snake that the lady in yellow had turned into was as fast as lightning as it shot out of the entrance of the 33rd floor, following closely behind Yi Chen. The destructive tornado was spreading too fast, and the whole 33rd floor was covered by it. The corpses of Jin Wanshuang and the rest had been turned into ashes within a second, and even their storage rings had been slowly eroded until nothing was left. In the next second, the destructive tornado had caught up with them through the entrance of the 33rd floor. It was like a hot knife through butter, and nothing could stop it. When Yi Chen arrived at the 31st floor, he was finally caught up by the destructive tornado. The powerful power touched his body, and Yi Chen felt like he was in the middle of an endless ocean. On top of the ocean, there were endless waves, and he could not control the direction of his flying sword at all. I have to hold on. The protective Jin Yuan layer that had been activated along with the bronze armor started to wobble, and its color started to dim down. The bronze symbols made a couple of popping sounds before disappearing. Yi Chen held on to Murong Qingcheng tightly, protecting her in front of him. Even if the destructive tornado broke through his protective Jin Yuan layer, it would not hurt her immediately. Stumbling, Yi Chen rushed to the 30th floor with Murong Qingcheng in his arms. The destructive tornado had finally weakened a lot, but what made his expression change was that another huge explosion was heard from the 33rd floor. A powerful vibration was transmitted down through the tower. Not good. Yi Chen looked extremely serious. The first wave of the destructive tornado had not disappeared yet, and if the second wave caught up, it would be impossible for him to survive. While flying on his sword, a lot of thoughts flashed through Yi Chen's mind. Too weak. I am still too weak. One life and death realm warriors battle, and the resulting tornado was already enough to kill me, and that was only because I had escaped fast enough. If I had been slower, I would have been dead already. Is this the power of life and death realm warriors? Even a tiny bit of it could kill any warrior below life and death realm. If I did not have the bronze armor and the defensive sword spell, would I still be alive? For the first time, Yi Chen truly felt the gap between him and life and death realm warriors. That kind of gap was like a chasm that could not be crossed. His protective Jin Yuan continued to weaken, and the aftermath of the first wave of destruction storm could no longer hurt him. However, an even greater danger had arrived. The second wave of destruction storm had caught up with him. Although it had weakened a lot as time passed, once it overlapped with the aftermath of the first wave, its power would not be far off, even if it was not as strong as the previous one. You owe me a favor. A yellow light flashed once behind him, and a massive yellow crystal snake wrapped around Yi Chen. At the same time, an even more horrifying destructive tornado appeared, drowning the three of them. Yi Chen realized that the yellow light around the snake had the special effect of weakening the destructive tornado. It was like a water snake swimming against the current. Although the water was a hindrance, it was much smaller as she swam. Her speed was even faster than Yi Chen's flying sword. Yi Chen could feel that the woman in yellow had a special attack. The snake spoke in human language. This is my special power. I see. Thank you. I do owe you a favor. Favors were the hardest to repay, but it was also not easy to do so. Hehe, let's get out of this first. The destructive tornado was too powerful. The third, fourth, and fifth waves had already appeared. It was hard to imagine what kind of battle the two on the 33rd floor were having. Right now, they were still on the 24th floor, and there were still a lot of floors below. The destructive tornado would be able to attack all the way to the first floor of the tower. Only after getting out of the tower would they be truly safe. As soon as they arrived at the 23rd floor, Yi Chen and the woman heard a few screams. Looking over, Xiaobao's group had been torn apart by the destructive tornado. Only Xiaobao and the strange old man survived. The others were all dead. 22nd floor, 21st floor, 20th floor, 19th floor. The third wave of the destructive storm stacked on top of each other, keeping the destructive storm at its original power. Then came the fourth wave, the fifth wave, and the destructive storm continued to increase. Inside the mysterious Yin Tower, there seemed to be an infinite amount of light, lighting up the entire tower. The first floor. After half a cup of tea's time, 4 figures flew out, all with pale faces and bleeding from all 7 orifices. Xiaobao had already returned to his golden lion form. The golden fur on his body was completely bald. After a miserable roar, he flew out. The strange old man mumbled and also left. The yellow crystal snake turned into the woman in yellow. She smiled and said, "See you later." Then, she spat out a mouthful of blood and left. So close. The dragon bone defense layer on Yi Chen's body disappeared as he carried Murong Qingcheng and left. After an unknown period of time, another human figure flew out. It was indeed the old man in black. Right now, He looked even worse than Yi Chen and the rest. His chi was a lot weaker, and there was a cut on his shoulder. Although the muscles inside were not damaged at all, Life and Death Realm warriors had an undying body, so it might have been cut off already. The dead mysterious Yin King is even more powerful. Damn it! The old man in black tore open the space and disappeared without a trace. Chapter 798. After the old man left, the mysterious Yin King wanted to rush out of the mysterious Yin Tower and escape. However, as soon as he stepped out, a black hole suddenly appeared in the sky above the ocean. Inside the black hole, a golden lightning pierced through the sky and landed on the mysterious Yin King's foot as if it had teleported. Pop! The mysterious evil king's entire foot was burned into ashes by the golden flame, and the fire spread towards his body. However, when it entered the mysterious Yin Tower, the golden flame died out automatically, and the mysterious evil king also gave up on leaving the mysterious Yin Tower. Above the ocean, the elder's figure appeared. He raised his head and saw the black hole slowly disappear. The expression on his face changed many times. Although the mysterious Yin Tower restricted the mysterious evil king's freedom, it also increased his battling ability. Damn, I can't believe that in one battle, I lost hundreds of years of cultivation. This hundreds of years of cultivation, I will need at least a few months to recover. The elder's expression was not good. Losing a lot of cultivation, although it wouldn't decrease his battling ability, it would affect his stamina. Most importantly, if he didn't recover the lost cultivation immediately, the longer it took, the harder it would be for him to recover. They shouldn't have gone far. Should I go after them? A look of hesitation flashed across the elder's face. Pooh! Suddenly, the elder spat out a mouthful of cold blood. The blood was grey, and once it touched the air, it made a sizzling sound. Damn, I will clear out the yin qi in my body first. Feeling that there was too much yin qi in his body, it would be a hindrance to recovering his cultivation, so the elder gave up on the idea of searching for Murong Qingcheng. To him, as long as he recovered, finding a person would be a piece of cake. There was no need to make things too difficult for himself. Pop! The figure disappeared like a black bubble, and the elder disappeared without a trace. Yi Chen took Murong Qingcheng with him, but didn't leave the ruins immediately. Instead, he found a very hidden building and temporarily moved in. If he went back the way he came, he would undoubtedly encounter the self-exploding fireflies. Yi Chen was not confident that he could leave this place safely with the unconscious Murong. It was better to wait for Murong to regain consciousness first. However, Yi Chen was also a little anxious. It was hard to say how long it would take for Murong Rong to recover from the soul shock. It was possible that Murong Rong could recover now, but it was also possible that she would not wake up for a long time. This depended on her luck, and it also depended on whether Murong Rong's soul was condensed or not. Spreading a blanket on the floor, Yi Chen carefully placed Murong on it. Looking at her pale and delicate face, Yi Chen sighed softly and sat cross-legged to the side. He began to regulate his breathing and heal his injuries. If it was anyone else, they would have suffered serious internal injuries from the Tiamat's wrath and would not be able to recover within 3 to 5 days. Fortunately, Yi Chen had the most basic immortal body. As long as the injuries did not affect his core, he would be able to recover in a short period of time. Half an hour later, Yi Chen slowly let out a breath of turbid qi and opened his eyes. I didn't expect this to be a blessing in disguise. The mysterious Yin King's soul sound wave greatly increased the burden on my heart, but it also stimulated the effect of the heart-nurturing grass. Originally, I would need more than a month to refine the heart-nurturing grass into my heart. But now, I only need a week. I'll take this opportunity and try to break through to Half-Step King Realm. Even if I can't break through, I'll at least familiarize myself with it. Keeping his promise, Yi Chen began his second attempt at Half-Step King Warrior Realm. On the 5th day, on this day, Murong Qingcheng groaned and woke up from her coma. I'm not dead. Murong Qingcheng thought that she was dead for sure. Now that she had woken up, it proved that she was only unconscious. At that time, her soul was in a mess, and she thought that she was dead for sure. Turning her head, Murong Qingcheng saw Yi Chen sitting cross-legged on the ground. Steam was rising from his body, and he seemed to be beside a stove. Knowing that Yi Chen was trying to break through to half-step king realm, Murong Qingcheng didn't disturb him. She crawled up from the bed and sat cross-legged on the ground. Taking a deep breath, she slowly entered a meditative state. On the 8th day, Yi Chen woke up. It's still not enough. Seems like I'll have to refine all 3 heart-nurturing grass before I can enter half-step king realm. However, I've finally refined the first one. Beside him, Murong Qingcheng sensed Yi Chen's movements and opened her eyes. Still not successful? Yi Chen said joyfully, "You're awake." "Yeah, it feels like a dream." Murong Qingcheng leaned over. Being alive was a gift from the heavens. She couldn't bear to die. "It's good that you're awake. As for breaking through to half-step king realm, there's no rush. I'll succeed sooner or later." When Murong Qingcheng hadn't woken up, Yi Chen had always felt that he couldn't enter the right state. There were too many worries. The soul was a person's foundation, and it was very troublesome. Hugging Murong, Yi Chen stood up and said, "Since you're awake, let's leave this place first. This is not a good place." "How is mysterious Yin King?" Murong Qingcheng suddenly asked. She didn't know how Yi Chen had brought her out safely. Yi Chen smiled and said, "It's all thanks to your demonic human king. He fought with mysterious Yin King, and I took the opportunity to leave the 33rd floor. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for us to leave alive. As for mysterious Yin King and demonic human king, I think they're still alive. At their level, killing each other is very difficult. It's the chaotic demonic ocean's demonic human king," Murong Qingcheng said in astonishment. "It should be. I'll try my best to enter half-step king realm. Otherwise, if I run into them, I won't even have the strength to fight back." Although entering half-step king realm meant that Yi Chen couldn't be an opponent of life and death kings, he had a large amount of Jinyuan crystals, which could allow him to increase his cultivation base to a certain extent. Once his cultivation base was enough, adding on his own tricks, it would be better than having no hope at all. Murong Qingcheng woke up, and the two left the ruins with much more ease. Those self-exploding fireflies still couldn't do anything to her dark force field. After leaving the ruins, the two dived for a long time. Only when they were tens of thousands of li away from this place did they break out of the water. Breathing in the fresh air, the two felt as if they had seen the sun again. "Let's find an uninhabited island first." Yi Chen looked around and said to Murong Qingcheng, "I feel that my cultivation base can increase again." Murong Qingcheng nodded. Finding an island in the boundless ocean was too easy. In less than half a day, the two found a relatively safe island. After the effect of the heart-nourishing grass had been used up, Yi Chen swallowed the second one. While refining it, he comprehended the space profound while studying the bewitching mirror shattering. The two complemented each other, and studying them together brought about unimaginable benefits. As Yi Chen's first space profound sword art, bewitching mirror shattering opened a new door for Yi Chen. As he studied it more and more, Yi Chen felt that the space profound was more and more profound. Wherever one was, there was a space. Space was not a box, but a container that could hold everything. Even time itself had an inseparable connection with this container. As the intensity of the bewitching mirror shattering increased, Yi Chen faintly felt that the things he saw were different from before. Before, he was limited to the surface. But now, he could already look at the essence of things. Perhaps it was a little hard to adapt to looking at the essence of things at the beginning, but once he got used to it, it would have an unimaginable effect on his future path. Break. As the sword slashed out, the seawater on the east side of the island twisted and folded, splitting into countless layers. Each layer was like a glass container. Pang! The seawater within the range of the space power was completely shattered, and waves soared into the sky. It should be about 80 to 90% done. Sheathing the evil vanquishing sword, Yi Chen let the waves wash over his body. Unknowingly, a month had passed. The second heart-nourishing grass had been refined successfully. Compared to before, Yi Chen's heart strength was several times stronger. With his blood pumping faster, his heart was like a drum, letting out thumping sounds. This sound caused the surrounding earth to shake and dust to rise. Once, Yi Chen had dived into the sea. The sound of his heart beating had even killed a fourth-grade demonic beast. Ripples spread out in all directions with Yi Chen as the center. It was hard to imagine the extent of Yi Chen's heartbeat. However, this was not the end. Yi Chen had officially refined the third heart-nourishing grass. Once he succeeded, he would attempt to break through to Half-Step King realm. This time, he could only succeed, failure was not allowed. On the other side, a powerful demonic aura soared into the sky, dyeing the sky black. Black whirlwinds appeared out of nowhere and revolved around the island, fiercely blowing. Murong Qingqing's cultivation base had clearly increased by another level. She was getting closer and closer to a veteran half-step king. Apart from this, the soul membrane of half-step kings would also increase along with the increase in cultivation base. For example, the yellow-robed woman was a strongest half-step king. Even if she suffered the soul sound waves of mysterious Yin King, she would only suffer some injuries and not lose consciousness. This was the effect of the soul membrane. On the other hand, Yi Chen possessed a fifth-step destruction sword soul and fourth-step immortal sword soul, as well as a soul power 5 times that of ordinary people. Even if he wasn't a half-step king, he could completely resist mysterious Yin King's soul sound waves. Compared to the yellow-robed woman, once he entered half-step king realm and formed his soul membrane, it would be difficult for even life and death kings to attack him with soul power. Unless it was some extremely frightening heaven-grade high-step soul attack secret art, or a heaven-grade peak soul attack secret art of annihilation. Another month passed by. Suddenly, a huge wave rose up in the sea. The huge wave took the shape of a ring and suddenly spread out. This was not the end. In the center of the ring-shaped wave, a huge water ball was suddenly born. It expanded to a size of several dozen meters before exploding violently. Water vapor filled the air. Dong 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 dong. The intense vibrations could be heard even on the island, startling some seabirds and causing them to flutter their wings and flee in panic. 3 heart-nourishing grass actually strengthened my heart to this extent. It seems like the success rate of breaking through to half-step king realm is at least 70%. Yi Chen emerged from the sea and stood on a reef. What Yi Chen didn't know was that the main reason his heart could be strengthened to this extent was related to his undying body. The human body had a limit, and too much medicinal energy would be wasted, and the body wouldn't be able to endure it all at once. If it were someone else, refining 3 heart-nourishing grass might not be as effective as refining 1 heart-nourishing grass for Yi Chen. This was because Yi Chen's undying body could maximize the potential of his body, allowing him to absorb medicinal energy like a bottomless pit. Moreover, if there was any injury, the undying body would also help repair it. As long as his heart didn't explode, there wouldn't be any problem. Therefore, although the undying body seemed insignificant in many aspects, nobody knew the truth. At the very least, Yi Chen wasn't clear about it. Chapter 799. Murong Qingqing had already come out of seclusion. Her current demonic power cultivation base was much stronger than when she was in the ruins. With a slight circulation of demonic power, the sky around the island darkened and demonic wind whistled, as if they had entered a world of darkness. According to Yi Chen's estimation, Murong Qingqing's current cultivation base was almost at mid-half-step king realm, while the yellow-robed woman was clearly at high step. This was the difference between having demonic power crystals and not. With Murong Qingqing here, Yi Chen could relax and enter seclusion to break through. Inside the spacious cave, Yi Chen sat cross-legged on a stone platform with his 5 hearts facing upwards, rapidly entering a state of wholehearted cultivation. Gulp. Under the control of his consciousness, the Zhen Yuan in Yi Chen's dantian slowly and powerfully revolved. Strands of Zhen Yuan gushed out of his dantian and flowed into his blood vessels. Then, driven by his blood, he began to break through to half-step king realm. There were countless blood vessels in the human body. Apart from the cornea, hair, nails, teeth, and epithelium, blood vessels could be found all over the body. According to the different structures and functions of blood vessels, they were divided into arteries, veins, and capillaries. Breaking through to half-step king realm naturally didn't need to fuse all 3 types of blood vessels with Zhen Yuan. He only needed to make the Zhen Yuan perfectly circulate along with the blood in the arteries. As his blood began to flow faster, Yi Chen's heartbeat became higher and higher. Every beat was like a coconut, yet also like a tightly clenched fist, extremely powerful. Thumping sounds rang out incessantly, and the air in the cave also vibrated, spreading outwards. Good. This is several times smoother than the first time. Feeling the power of his heart, Yi Chen was even more confident. Under the control of his consciousness, his blood flow once again increased, reaching an unimaginable level. However, just in case, Yi Chen still swallowed a spirit melting grass, which could allow Zhen Yuan and blood to merge for a longer time. With enough spirit melting grass, he wouldn't even need heart-protecting flower or heart-nurturing grass to directly break through to half-step king realm. Unfortunately, spirit melting grass wasn't cabbage. Yi Chen had only found 2 of them in Four Corner City. Everything was ready. Yi Chen could feel that his breakthrough to half-step king realm was not far off. While Yi Chen was trying to break through to the half-king realm, the outside world was not calm either. It was unknown when a head the size of a castle had emerged from the raging sea. It was a giant whale. On the giant whale's head, there were 4 lake-sized eyes. 2 of the eyes were blue and flashed with electricity. The 2 eyes in the middle were scarlet, cruel and bloodthirsty. It was a 4-eyed thunderwhale at the half-step demonic king realm. It was the largest among the cetacean sea beasts. It was said that the largest 4-eyed thunderwhale was comparable to a city. It could swallow half a city in one bite, killing countless lives. Its huge body meant that the beast power inside its body was boundless. The moment the 4-eyed thunderwhale appeared, everything within hundreds of miles became strangely still. The waves froze in the air, the wind stopped spinning, and everything was frozen. Puny human, hand over all your wealth. The 4-eyed thunderwhale let out a thunderous sound towards Murong Qingcheng. Murong Qingcheng stood on a tall rock. She reached out her hand and brushed away the hair that had been messed up by the wind before. She said lightly, "Cut the crap. You are perfect for the experiment." With her cultivation increasing, Murong Qingcheng was just about to find someone to test it out on. The 4-eyed thunderwhale was a huge sea beast, so it would be a good opponent. "You are looking for death." The 4-eyed thunderwhale was furious. It opened its huge mouth, and a thick water column with electricity shot out, attacking at Murong Qingcheng, who was relatively small in size. Murong Qingcheng did not dare to be careless, so she reached out her right hand and blocked in front of her body. Rumble. A semicircle black barrier appeared, protecting half of the island within. The 100-meter-thick water column crashed onto it, bringing up a huge splash. However, those arm-thick electric currents were unable to penetrate the barrier and harm Murong Qingcheng. Dark element profound sense martial art, darkness sky. Die. The most powerful attack of sea beasts was not energy attacks, but physical attacks. The mountain-like 4-eyed thunderwhale jumped up. The sky was dark, and the whole island was covered in its shadow. Swoosh. Swoosh. The 4-eyed thunderwhale's body was surrounded by electricity as it smashed towards Murong Qingcheng. Dark Devour. Murong Qingcheng was afraid that the battle would affect Yi Chen, who was in the middle of breaking through. She quickly formed a hand seal with both of her hands. After that, she waved her right hand in the air. All of a sudden, 4 black light balls formed in a row, spinning and collapsing like 4 small black holes. As soon as the 4-eyed thunderwhale touched the black light balls, it immediately felt that half of the impact had disappeared. The beast power in its body flowed out like water, pouring into the black light balls. This black light ball could devour power and energy. Piss off. Her tall and slim body jumped into the air as Murong Qingcheng threw out a palm attack at the 4-eyed thunderwhale's forehead. That powerful demon power exploded, blowing the 4-eyed thunderwhale dozens of miles away. The shockwave that was brought up even tore apart the clouds in the sky. Such a rich beast power. The second her palm made contact with the 4-eyed thunderwhale, Murong Qingcheng could feel that its beast power had not decreased by much. Ever since she had become a half-step king warrior, her dark devour ability had increased by more than 10 times. Even a half-step king warrior would lose 1/10 of their power if they were hit by it. If they were hit consecutively, They would not even need to fight before their Jin Yuan would be completely devoured. However, the four-eyed thunder whale's beast power could be said to be endless. 4 dark devour attacks would only devour 1/100th of its beast power, which was almost negligible. Whale dance. As a half-step beast king, the four-eyed thunder whale would not only have this kind of attack. Its body shone with a bright thunder light, and hundreds of giant whales were formed from the ocean water. These whales were not even 1/100th the size of the four-eyed thunder whale, but there were a lot of them. Their bodies were covered in thunder and lightning, making cracking sounds. Hundreds of huge whales rode the wind and broke through the waves, rushing toward Murong Qingcheng and attacking her. Murong Qingcheng's expression did not change at all. The purple and black electric currents on her body moved quickly, and an invisible power field spread out with her as the center. Within a second, hundreds of giant whales were affected. Under the effect of the power field, every step the whales took would have to bear 10 times the pressure. Before they even got close to the island, they had all been shattered and turned back into ocean water. What kind of power field is this? The 2 eyes in the center of the four-eyed thunder whale squinted into slits. A normal force field wouldn't be this powerful. His whale dance was one of his most powerful trump cards, but he couldn't even get close to her. This woman's power was beyond his imagination. I will come again. The four-eyed thunder whale sank back into the ocean, and its towering mountain-like body disappeared. Lightly landing on a rock nearby, Murong Qingcheng frowned slightly. Ocean beasts are usually huge, and their beast power is extremely powerful. It is not easy to kill them, unless I can break through their defense with one attack and hit their vitals. That palm attack from before had already wounded the four-eyed thunder whale. But obviously, compared to its huge body, that injury was just a small one. It did not even have the right to cause the four-eyed thunder whale any pain. Ocean beasts were called moving fortresses for a reason. Guarding the island, Murong Qingcheng did not move, but her soul power would scan out from time to time. Inside the cave on the island, Yi Chen had already reached the critical moment. His blood was driving his Jin Yuan, completing the perfect cycle. He was only one step away, and it would be the most difficult one. Taking out the second and last spirit melting plant, Yi Chen swallowed it without any hesitation. All of a sudden, a wave of cool and sticky medicinal power seeped into his blood vessels, making the blood and Jin Yuan combine even better. There would not be any sign of separation in a short period of time. Success or failure depends on this. Yi Chen moved his mind, and his blood flow increased rapidly. His heart was reaching its limit, and a thumping sound could be heard continuously. Soon. Yi Chen's body was surrounded by a hot mist, and within the mist, there was a vague red light. It was the sign of the excessive water evaporation, bringing out the qi and blood. In his inner vision state, Yi Chen could see that inside his arteries, his blood and Jin Yuan had almost formed a perfect cycle. There was only a small gap left, which would decide whether or not he would be able to reach the half-step king warrior level. Let's make a breakthrough. Taking a deep breath, Yi Chen pushed his blood flow to an overloaded state. All of a sudden, his heart was slightly damaged, and a lot of his blood vessels were broken. Boom! Right then, a wave of powerful Jin Yuan vibration spread out in all directions with the cave as the center. Dark clouds gathered in the sky all of a sudden, and heavy rain poured down. Lightning and thunder roared, and the intense Yuan qi vibrated, causing a huge storm. It was nature's reaction to the change of the environment. Ting! All of a sudden, a massive sword qi shot out into the sky, tearing apart the sky and earth. The breakthrough is successful. This sword qi. Murong Qingcheng turned her head, a joyful expression on her face. Without a doubt, from this moment on, Yi Chen had officially entered the half-step king warrior level. However, this horrifying sword qi was a bit different, completely different from the sword qi that came from great swords. It had a unique characteristic. Murong Qingcheng looked like she was thinking about something. Before this, Yi Chen had trained the Green Lotus sword spell, which was a top-rank Earth Realm martial art. Above that, there was actually a Heaven Realm martial art, which was not something that anyone could train successfully. Although it was related to the comprehensive ability, it was not directly related. Instead, it was directly related to Jin Yuan and Realm. Normally, Only life and death realm warriors could create a heaven realm martial art that was suitable for them. Of course, it would take a long time, at least dozens of years, and at most hundreds of years. Under life and death realm, even if one's comprehensive ability was extremely high, they would not be able to create a heaven realm martial art, because under life and death realm, one's Jin Yuan would not be able to support the operation of a heaven realm martial art. However, there was an exception, and that was some top-rank Earth realm martial arts that could be upgraded. For example, the Green Lotus sword spell was one of them, which was originally a top-rank Earth realm martial art. Once it was upgraded, it would naturally become a heaven realm martial art. With such a huge commotion, Murong Qingcheng could not think of any other possibilities. Chapter 800. Murong Qingcheng's guess was right. When Yi Chen broke through to the half-step king warrior level, he had indeed increased his Green Lotus sword spell to the heaven realm. Actually, a long time ago, Yi Chen had already felt that his Green Lotus sword spell had been restricted, as if there was an invisible barrier stopping him from making a breakthrough. Since Battle King's experience was different from Yi Chen's, he had created his own heaven realm martial art when he reached the life and death realm. Therefore, his experience could not explain this, and Yi Chen did not think too much about it at that time. Now that he thought about it, it should be because of the special nature of his Green Lotus sword spell. After all, when he first got his Green Lotus sword spell, it was written that both the Green Lotus sword spell and Green Lotus sword arts could make breakthroughs. Later on, the Green Lotus sword art had evolved into a heaven realm martial art, which was also a profound sense martial art amaranthine nature. Heaven realm martial arts are profound sense martial arts. Although heaven realm martial arts do not have much to do with profound sense, they still contain an immeasurable power like the natural law. Battle King's heaven realm martial art was the platinum sword body, which had a natural advantage in defense. Normal king warriors would not be able to hurt him at all. I wonder what kind of special effect my Green Lotus sword spell has. Yi Chen's body was shining with a powerful blue qi flow. It was extremely sharp, and with just a little bit of combination, it could form an indestructible sword qi. That earth-shattering sword qi just now was a beam of sword qi formed by the blue qi flow. Scatter. Yi Chen groaned as he controlled the blue qi flow to scatter. Pop. As if a blue bubble had been formed, the blue qi flow spread out with Yi Chen as the center. Looking from afar, Yi Chen seemed to be inside a massive blue qi cover. Inside the qi cover, the blue qi flow was spinning without any pattern. Condense. Yi Chen could not be more familiar with the Green Lotus sword spell. Therefore, even though his Green Lotus sword spell had reached the heaven realm, Yi Chen still vaguely knew something about it. Ding, ding. Countless sword sounds were heard as countless blue great swords appeared inside the blue qi cover. Is this the sword artist's domain? Sword domain? Yi Chen was surprised. No, it should be the embryonic form of a sword domain. A true sword domain would have its own unique laws, and these laws would be controlled by the person who released it. Big brother, that woman is on the island ahead. Thousands of miles away, 4 figures were galloping over. These 4 figures were a 4-eyed giant whale, a double-headed serpent, a flaming giant bird, and a hook-nosed man standing on the back of the giant bird. The man's bare arms were covered with fish scales, and he had a pair of grey wings on his back. The demonic energy fluctuations emanating from him seemed to contain the attributes of wind and water. The man nodded satisfyingly and said to the huge whale, "It's hard to see a human half-step king in the deep ocean, not to mention a beautiful woman. You've done well. Once I capture that woman, I'll give you a bit more of her wealth." "Thank you, big brother." The 4-eyed whale opened its pitch-black mouth. Sea beasts in the deep sea had always lacked spirit stones to cultivate, so human experts were one of their favorite prey. "We're here." Thousands of miles were only tens of blinks of an eye for sea beasts at half-step beast king level. Soon, the 4 beasts arrived at the island. "You're here again." Murong Qingcheng had already sensed their arrival. The 4-eyed whale laughed weirdly. "I said I would come back. I didn't expect you to be this arrogant, staying here and not leaving. With your power, why do you need to leave?" Purple-black electric currents moved around on the surface of her body. As Murong Qingcheng spoke, Her dark power field spread out, covering dozens of miles. Big brother, this woman is too arrogant. Let me teach her a lesson. The two-headed serpent volunteered. The hook-nosed man glanced at Murong Qingcheng. In his memory, he had never seen a human woman who was even 60% as beautiful as her. All of a sudden, a perverted look flashed through his eyes as he held his chin and said to the serpent, "Don't hurt her. I know what I'm doing." The serpent was not much smaller than the four-eyed whale, and in terms of length, it was even longer. It coiled its body and raised its two heads up high, looking down at Murong Qingcheng. Its long red tongues flicked in and out like two 10-meter-long spears. "Surrender now, and you will not have to suffer any pain. My patience is limited." The two-headed serpent was more powerful than the four-eyed whale. It had learned from the four-eyed whale that this woman wasn't necessarily stronger than the four-eyed whale, but her force field ability was slightly more powerful, which rendered its trump card useless. The two-headed serpent wasn't afraid of any force fields. Its ability was different from the four-eyed whale's. Kill. Murong Qingcheng didn't waste any more time with the serpent. She leaped into the air and threw dozens of hand blades at the serpent. Clang, 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 clang. Although the flying sky assassination cut was only a low-rank profound sense martial art, it was fast. Because of its carelessness, the serpent was hit by dozens of black blade lights, its scales flying everywhere. Feeling the pain, the serpent screamed. Its left head shot out a high-pressure water column toward Murong Qingcheng, while its right head shot out a black venom toward Murong Qingcheng. The high-pressure water column only relied on the impact to hurt people, but the black venom was different. Once a demonic beast reached rank 9 or 10, its venom would no longer be pure venom, but a powerful venom mixed with Jin Yuan. Not to mention the venom from a half-step beast king, once it touched the body, it would be very troublesome. Swoosh. The wings on her back spread out as Murong Qingcheng flashed once, avoiding the high-pressure water column and the black venom appearing in the sky. Soul-extinguishing wave. Holding a black light ball in her hand, Murong Qingcheng suddenly clenched her fist. Boom. The black light ball was shattered, and an energy wave mixed with a soul attack shot out toward the serpent. The serpent made a weird sound as its body flipped over, rolling around in the ocean. Although the soul attack contained in the soul-extinguishing wave was not enough to kill it, it had shaken its soul quite a bit. Moreover, the soul of the sea beasts had always been weaker than that of humans. This was the horrifying thing about soul attacks. Sky Demon Finger. Murong Qingcheng seized the opportunity and performed another demon's martial art, Sky Demon Finger. The black finger power was like a small black sun, attacking toward the serpent. Boom. The black and red light spread out in all directions. In that critical moment, the flaming bird shot out a red fireball, which landed on the black sun. On the back of the flaming bird, the man clapped his hands and laughed. Not bad. Not bad. Number 4 and number 2's beast power are thousands of times more powerful than yours, but they still lost to you. Your power might even be at the top of the human demi-king warriors. The sea beasts were one of the beasts. Because of their huge bodies, their beast power was unstoppable. Normally, 10 human demi-king warriors would need to fight against one demi-king level sea beast. But, it was also because of their power that it was extremely hard for the sea beasts to produce demi-king warriors. The deep ocean was so huge, and the demi-king level sea beasts might not be that much more than the humans. Cut the bullshit. Let's go. Murong Qingcheng frowned slightly. The sea beasts were indeed scarier than the beasts on the land. The main reason was that they were too huge, and their beast power was horrifying. Although their power and body might not be the same, the difference was still hundreds of times. Murong, let me do it. The cave on the island exploded, and Yi Chen in blue flew over, standing right next to Murong Qingcheng, looking at the 4 beasts in the distance. You are the one she is protecting, right? You have just reached demi-king warrior level. What can you do? The man observed Yi Chen carefully and realized that his Jin Yuan vibration was a lot weaker than Murong Qingcheng's, which meant that he had just reached demi-king warrior level. Sword domain. Yi Chen did not say anything. He squinted his eyes slightly, and a blue light suddenly spread out from his body, covering hundreds of miles in a second. What is this? The man was already in the range of the blue light. He reached out his hand and made a grabbing gesture in the air, feeling that the blue chi flow was a bit piercing. Yi Chen smiled lightly and pushed his right hand toward the four. Shoo, shoo, shoo. Without any sign, the blue chi flow condensed into countless blue great swords, each of which contained a rank 5 destruction sword intent. Perhaps their pure attacking power was not as powerful as Yi Chen's normal attacks, but with enough of them, it would still have a destructive power. Tens of thousands of blue great swords shot out, and the four beasts were all within the attack range. Be careful. The man did not dare to be careless, so he pushed up a layer of protective beast power. The other three beasts also activated their beast power to block out the incoming attacks. There were just too many blue great swords, shooting out like a storm. This kind of effect was just like thousands of Sea of Souls realm warriors attacking at the same time. Without a doubt, they had suppressed the four beasts, and then started to weaken their defense. Too scary. Back out. The aquiline-nosed man was aghast. His protective demonic energy couldn't block so many green swords. How was this a one-on-one fight? It was clearly a group fight. Tens of thousands of people ganging up on four people. They weren't sea beast kings, so they couldn't ignore this kind of attack. The first one to be attacked was the four-eyed giant whale. Its body was the widest, so it was attacked the most. Almost a third of the attacks were directed at it. Pooh. Pooh. Like a piece of rotten meat, the four-eyed giant whale was pierced by the blue great swords and turned into a pile of blood paste. The ocean water it was in had been cut into countless pieces, and it could not be healed right away. The next one to die was the double-headed snake, which was not much better than the whale. The flaming bird was rather fast. It carried the man and ran out of the sword realm. The red feathers on its body had almost all been cut off by the blue great swords. Luckily, it was at the edge of the sword realm and was able to run fast, so it was not killed right away. Do you think you can get away? Yi Chen took out his evil shattering sword and threw out a waning moon attack. That black crescent-shaped sword power made the full moon in the sky look even dimmer. It sliced through the flaming bird's body once. Swoosh. The flaming bird and the man were both dismembered within a second. Chapter 801. Murong Qingcheng wasn't too surprised that Yi Chen had instantly killed the two. Before entering Half-Step King realm, Yi Chen already had the strength of a strongest Half-Step King. Now that his cultivation base had increased by several folds, his strength had naturally reached an unfathomable level. However, Yi Chen's sword domain had broadened her horizons. She could tell that any of the blue swords within the sword domain didn't have much offensive power, only at late Sea of Soul realm. After all, the blue swords were merely sword chi, and didn't have the amplification of artifacts or profound martial skills. They only had pure killing power. However, when tens of thousands of blue swords shot out at the same time, their momentum wasn't inferior to the combined attack of thousands of late Sea of Soul realm experts. Is this the change brought about by the Green Lotus sword arts? Murong Qingcheng asked. Yi Chen nodded. After the Green Lotus sword arts became a heaven-grade cultivation technique, it has many more wondrous uses. So far, I've only discovered the sword domain. Of course, a heaven-grade cultivation technique is a heaven-grade cultivation technique after all. Its Zhen Yuan recovery speed is 10 times faster than before, and the circulation speed of Zhen Yuan is also extremely fast. Cultivation techniques normally wouldn't increase one's battle power by too much, but they were extremely important. Thinking about it, one couldn't always rely on pills in a prolonged battle. If one took too many pills, their Zhen Yuan would become impure, and they wouldn't be able to circulate it. Therefore, one's Zhen Yuan recovery speed had to be impressive. At this moment, the advantage of a high-grade cultivation technique would be obvious. Secondly, during a battle, both sides would become stiff, and those with high-grade cultivation techniques could rapidly circulate Zhen Yuan to expel the stiffness. This was an advantage that couldn't be ignored. Lastly, the higher the grade of the cultivation technique, the faster the cultivation would be. Without any exaggeration, an ordinary half-step king who cultivated bitterly for 100 years might not be able to reach the result of Yi Chen's 10 years of bitter cultivation. The gap between a heaven-grade cultivation technique and a peak earth-grade cultivation technique couldn't be calculated with common sense. Moreover, heaven-grade cultivation techniques usually had special powers. For example, Yi Chen's sword domain. If used well, it could allow Yi Chen to ignore group attacks. If he encountered hundreds or thousands of late Sea of Soul Realm experts, he would no longer need to run, as he could annihilate them all by himself. In the past, he could only retreat. Sword domain, no wonder. Murong Qingcheng suddenly understood. Domain was an extremely special existence. Even among life and death kings, only a few possessed a domain. Although Yi Chen's sword domain was not a true domain, and hadn't formed the power of rules, it was a great trump card in the same realm. Yi Chen had just stepped into the half-step king warrior realm, but he still did not have the time to use Jin Yuan crystals to increase his cultivation. After taking care of the 4 beasts, Yi Chen planned to spend some more time to increase his cultivation to the limit that he could control. Otherwise, all these Jin Yuan crystals would be a waste. When he was at late Sea of Soul Realm, Yi Chen had spent less than 10 Jin Yuan crystals to raise his cultivation base to peak late Sea of Soul Realm. However, after reaching half-step king realm, this amount increased by 100-fold. It was not that the Jin Yuan of half-step kings was several hundred times thicker than that of late Sea of Soul Realm, which would be too exaggerated. The main reason was that the Jin Yuan of half-step kings was even purer, to the point that it had reached a demanding level of purity. It was like gold. Even if the purity of gold was not high, it would still be valuable, and no one would be willing to throw it away. However, at half-step king realm, it was like picking bones in an egg. Even the slightest flaw would be discarded. However, at this moment, no one would complain about their Jin Yuan being too pure. In fact, the purer the Jin Yuan, the better, because it would increase their chances of breaking through to life and death realm. After consuming 800 Jin Yuan crystals, Yi Chen's cultivation base had finally reached the limit of what he could control. Any more and he wouldn't be able to control it, and the gains would not make up for the losses. At this moment, Yi Chen's cultivation base had actually caught up to Murong Qingcheng's. The gap between the two's soul power and martial arts was too huge, and it couldn't be helped. At peak late Sea of Soul Realm, I couldn't use the evil vanquishing sword's might at all, not to mention the Sky Scorpio sword. The evil vanquishing sword is a pseudo-extreme grade artifact, and it requires too much Jin Yuan. Right now, if I use it with all my strength, I should be able to use it 5 times. In the mysterious Yin Pagoda, Yi Chen wielded the evil vanquishing sword, which was only a bit more powerful than the Thunder Disaster sword. Of course, at that time, the evil vanquishing sword's power was more important than its might. The reason why Yi Chen was able to kill the aquiline-nosed man and the giant flame bird from 100 li away was precisely because he had unleashed the full might of the evil vanquishing sword. Otherwise, at such a distance, its might would have been weakened by a lot. After all, this was different from sword domain, in which attacks would not be weakened. Raising his cultivation base to the limit of his control, it was time to leave. Instead of going to Quadrant Island, the two spent 5 days and 5 nights before arriving at another bustling island in Richlight Oceanspan, Gemstone Archipelago. Gemstone Archipelago alone couldn't compare to Quadrant Island. Added together, their total area was more than 10 times that of Quadrant Island. Gazing into the distance, the ocean seemed to be embedded with dozens of different colored gems, emitting a beautiful radiance under the sunlight. Gemstone Archipelago was named after the colors of the islands, such as Azure Island, Fiery Island, and Orange Island. The two weren't too familiar with this place, so they landed on the edge of Azure Island. As soon as the two landed, a young woman ran over. Her cultivation base was neither high nor low, at early astral reaching realm. "It's your first time at Gemstone Archipelago. My name is Wang Lan, and I can be your guide. If there's anything you don't know, you can ask me. The price is very cheap, only 5,000 mid-grade spirit stones." The young woman looked at Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng with some expectation. Yi Chen said, "How do you exchange mid-grade spirit stones and upper-grade spirit stones in Gemstone Archipelago?" Wang Lan honestly said, "There are many treasures in the deep sea, but few spirit stones. In Gemstone Archipelago, 1 upper-grade spirit stone can be exchanged for 80 mid-grade spirit stones. Oh, a very high exchange rate. Generally speaking, 1 upper-grade spirit stone could be exchanged for at least 50 mid-grade spirit stones. 1 to 60 to 70 was the most common, and exceeding 70 was already very high. As for 1 to 100, it would only appear in auctions. The exchange rate in the market wasn't that high. Here are 40 upper-grade spirit stones, half of the price. When we don't need you anymore, we'll give you the other half. For now, take us to a high-grade artifact exchange site. The higher the better. Murong Qingcheng handed over 10 upper-grade spirit stones to Wang Lan. Many thanks. Wang Lan accepted the upper-grade spirit stones with a joyful expression. All right, take us there, Yi Chen said indifferently. This way. Wang Lan soared into the sky and brought the two toward the center of Gemstone Archipelago. Gemstone Archipelago, red islands are generally used for the trading of artifacts. Light red islands are the lowest, and generally only mid and upper-grade artifacts are traded. Fiery red islands are for upper-grade artifacts and peak upper-grade artifacts. Above the fiery red islands is the deep red islands, where you can occasionally see pseudo-extreme grade artifacts. It's the highest grade island in Gemstone Archipelago. On the way, Wang Lan explained to the two. Murong Qingcheng asked, "You're saying that pseudo-extreme grade artifacts have appeared on the deep red islands?" Wang Lan nodded, depending on the mountain, depending on the river. There are many treasures in Richlight Oceanspan, and people often obtain some extreme grade artifacts. They can't use them themselves, and they don't feel safe keeping them on them. Therefore, they sell them and buy things that they can use for themselves. If you two are lucky, you might be able to buy a suitable artifact. However, the price here is very high, so you two better be prepared. Yi Chen faintly smiled, but didn't say anything. After some conversation, Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng learned that Wang Lan was born and raised in Gemstone Archipelago. Apart from cultivating, she was a guide for others. Although astral reaching experts didn't look good, they earned a lot of spirit stones. After all, those who could come to Gemstone Archipelago were basically Sea of Soul Realm experts, and they would have tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of upper-grade spirit stones. They wouldn't haggle with you. An ordinary astral reaching expert would have a net worth of 100,000 mid-grade spirit stones at most, which would be close to 1,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Leading the way once would allow one to cultivate for a long time in peace. Of course, this kind of business wasn't easy to do. There were too many people competing with one another, so one had to rely on luck and discernment. In a short while, the three arrived at the Deep Red Island. The largest artifact trading place on the island is the Splendid Exchange at the center of the island. The minimum requirement to enter is Sea of Soul Realm. Wang Lan said from the front. Arriving outside the Splendid Exchange, Murong Qingcheng stopped and gave Wang Lan 40 upper-grade spirit stones. You wait here. When we come out later, we'll need you to be our guide. 80 upper-grade spirit stones were nothing to Murong Qingcheng. She had obtained more than 100 million upper-grade spirit stones in the ruins of the mysterious Yin King, which was hard to imagine for ordinary people. All right. Wang Lan obediently waited outside. This time, she had encountered a big customer. Although she couldn't see through their cultivation bases, judging from their actions, they were at least rich late Sea of Soul Realm experts. Entering the Splendid Exchange, the two were startled by the flow of people inside. There were too many Sea of Soul Realm experts inside, numbering in the thousands. As far as the eye could see, the Splendid Exchange seemed to be packed with people. Heated discussions could be heard from far away. Wind Thunderstaff, upper-grade artifact, 300,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Smelting Fire Sword, upper-grade artifact, 320,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Dazzling Armor, upper-grade artifact, 520,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Divine Wind Boots, upper-grade artifact, 480,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Among the treasures being sold in the Glorious Bazaar, even the worst ones were top high-rank treasures. Of course, as Wang Lan had said, the treasures here were indeed expensive. Ordinary high-rank treasures would not exceed 100,000 high-rank spirit stones. Although the lowest grade of the treasures here were top high-rank treasures, it was still more than 100,000 high-rank spirit stones. Fortunately, one could bargain here. You could also compare the price. The higher the price was, the better it would be for bargaining. Walking through the entire splendid exchange, the two found a staircase leading to the second floor. There were 4 Sea of Soul Realm experts guarding there. Sorry, you can't go up without late Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base. The 4 obstructed a middle-aged man with mid-Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base. I have spirit stones. The middle-aged man was unwilling. Sorry, there are rules. The guard's expression didn't change. Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng were baffled. Low cultivation base didn't mean low wealth. The rules of the splendid exchange were indeed strange. The two didn't stop and proceeded to the second floor. The 4 guards carefully sized up Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng and were astonished. They couldn't see through the two's cultivation base at all. There was only one explanation: the two were half-step kings. Richlight Oceanspan had numerous half-step kings, and they were the true kings of this place. Please. The 4 opened the way. Upon arriving at the second floor, the two didn't see many people. It was quite spacious and empty. Based on a rough estimation, there were only a few hundred people here. However, the artifacts sold here were of high grade, all of them being semi-extreme grade artifacts. Moreover, the stalls were quite far apart, so there wouldn't be a crowd. Chapter 802. Although semi-extreme grade artifacts and peak upper grade artifacts didn't differ much in terms of grade, the price difference was more than 10 times, and some even reached 20 times. Even among semi-extreme grade artifacts, there was a huge difference in quality. Some rare semi-extreme grade artifacts weren't any weaker than pseudo-extreme grade artifacts, and their imitation targets were also famous extreme grade artifacts from ancient times. Murong Qingcheng's goal in coming here was to find a pair of gloves that suited her. After all, compared to her cultivation and strength, her original gloves were a bit outdated. It would be fine if she fought against ordinary half-step kings, but if she encountered strongest half-step kings, it would be hard to avoid suffering some losses. Along the way, the two saw many semi-extreme grade artifacts. Blowing Snow Glove, price 3 million upper grade spirit stones. Silver Snake Blade, price 3,200,000 upper grade spirit stones. Blood Flame Spear, price 3,500,000 upper grade spirit stones. Water Moon Sky Armor, price 5 million upper grade spirit stones. In ancient times, there were many semi-extreme grade artifacts, and some of them might not even be an imitation of an extreme grade artifact. The main reason was that the grade of the materials was somewhat low, making it impossible to make an extreme grade artifact. Even inferior artifacts couldn't be made, so they became semi-extreme grade artifacts. Bone Eroding Evil Shadow, price 6 million upper grade spirit stones. After walking for a long time, the two finally found a pair of gloves that looked good. Excuse me, can I have a look at this pair of gloves? Murong Qingcheng and Yi Chen walked over. Sure. The seller was a robust middle-aged man. His cultivation base was not low, being at the peak of late Sea of Soul Realm. However, facing Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng, who were both half-step kings, his cultivation base was not worth mentioning. He hurriedly took out the gloves and handed them over to Murong Qingcheng. Taking the gloves, Murong Qingcheng sensed the soul imprint inside. It wasn't that someone had used it before, but rather a basic precaution in the marketplace. It was to prevent some customers from saying that the items belonged to them, which would not be a pleasant thing. Imprinting a soul imprint on an artifact for sale. This way, as long as one wasn't a life and death king, they wouldn't be able to erase the soul imprint in a short period of time. Without one's own soul imprint, one wouldn't be able to bring out the artifact's full power. However, this was not a battle, but a test of the quality of the gloves. Putting on the Bone Eroding Evil Shadow Glove, Murong Qingcheng clenched her fist slightly. All of a sudden, a huge amount of black chi poured out, twisting the space slightly. The surrounding environment was reflected inside, becoming blurry. Shoo! Reaching out her hand, Murong Qingqing's right hand was like a steel blade, leaving a light claw mark in the air. The middle-aged man held his breath. Without a doubt, Murong Qingqing was a half-step king, and not an ordinary one at that. Although that attack just now wasn't aimed at him, he felt as if his soul was about to be pierced through. It was swift and tyrannical. Not good, it's only 2 to 3 grades higher than normal semi-extreme rank gloves. Murong Qingqing shook her head and took off the gloves. Yi Chen laughed. No rush, I haven't finished the second floor yet. The bone-eroding evil shadow was a rare treasure for normal half-step king warriors. Unfortunately, Murong Qingqing needed better gloves. Even if they weren't pseudo-extreme rank, they couldn't be too bad. You two don't want it. The middle-aged man took over the gloves and asked carefully. Yi Chen waved his hand, no need. Hearing him, the middle-aged man sat back down. He didn't dare to throw a tantrum in front of 2 half-step king warriors. The second floor was finished. All in all, there were a lot of good items, but none of them could enter Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing's eyes. The two also didn't splurge to buy something they didn't need. Third floor entrance, 4-peak late sea of Soul Realm guards stood there, with a sign on the side that said, only half-step king warriors are allowed to enter. Without any obstruction, the two went up to the third floor. Slightly squinting his eyes, Yi Chen encountered so many half-step king warriors at the same place. There were at least 40 to 50 half-step king warriors on the third floor. Most of them were elders, followed by middle-aged warriors. There were only a few young warriors. There were very few treasures for sale on the third floor. In total, there were only 10 of them. Beside each treasure, there were 4 or 5 people surrounding it. There were 2 places with the most people. It seemed that the treasures for sale should be of the very high quality. Otherwise, it wouldn't have attracted so many people. After a brief glance, the two of them flew past the first 8 artifacts and arrived at the last 2 artifacts. One of them was a semi-extreme grade saber. Judging from its intense saber chi, it didn't seem any weaker than a pseudo-extreme grade artifact. Moreover, its price was also very high, reaching 13 million upper-grade spirit stones. How could most half-step king warriors afford it? It was no wonder that everyone was looking at it without making up their minds to buy it. Can you make it a bit cheaper? I only have 8 million upper-grade spirit stones. A burly man with a sturdy figure asked. The owner was an old man. He shook his head. You know this saber's might. I won't sell it for less than 13 million. If you take it to the auction, the starting price will be at least 5 million. You might not be able to buy it for 13 million upper-grade spirit stones. The tall and sturdy man became anxious. Half-step king warriors who use sabers might not have 13 million upper-grade spirit stones. If you take this saber to the auction, don't tell me you can sell it for 13 million upper-grade spirit stones. Moreover, don't forget that you have to pay 5% to the auction house. Then count it as my bad luck. The old man was calm and collected. If you don't want to sell it, then forget it. I'll come back to buy it after the auction. The tall and sturdy man studied the semi-extreme grade saber a couple of times before turning to leave. On the side, Yi Chen smiled. Although this saber is a semi-extreme grade artifact, its saber chi is too intense. I'm afraid it's the best among the semi-extreme grade artifacts. No wonder the owner offered 13 million upper-grade spirit stones for it. The artifacts here seem to be several times better than the semi-extreme grade saber. Murong Qingqing looked in another direction. What is it? Yi Chen also looked over. Inside the crystal counter, a gloomy shining armor floated in the air. Next to the armor was a sign, Shadow Armor, Pseudo-Extreme Grade Artifact. Price, 33 million upper-grade spirit stones. Wow! It's actually a pseudo-extreme grade armor. Among the treasures, defensive treasures were usually twice as expensive as offensive treasures. The Shadow Armor was sold for 33 million high-grade spirit stones. Although it was expensive, it was not too outrageous. Boss, this Shadow Armor is way too expensive, isn't it? A defensive artifact is twice as expensive as an offensive artifact. If it were an offensive artifact, wouldn't it be 16,500,000 upper-grade spirit stones? It's a few million more than a normal pseudo-extreme grade artifact. A middle-aged man in luxurious clothes said with a frown. The owner was also an old man in his 70s. He raised his head and said slowly, "This shadow armor of mine is different from normal pseudo-extreme grade artifacts. You can't compare it to them. How is it different?" The middle-aged man in luxurious clothes felt an itch in his heart. As a half-step king, who wouldn't want a pseudo-extreme grade defensive artifact? With a pseudo-extreme grade defensive artifact, even those who were much more powerful than him would be exhausted to death. Even if he encountered a powerful enemy, he would still be able to escape. This shadow armor is fused with a small amount of Heavenly Starstone. Heavenly Starstone is a top grade ore that can only be found in the starry sky. It has a powerful force field. After fusing with Heavenly Starstone and pouring Jin Yuan into it, you can activate the Heavenly Star force field, which will increase your strength by a lot. It can save your life in many situations. Sky Star Stone. The crowd was shocked. The Starstone was an extremely rare treasure among the best quality materials. Normally, it could only be found in those fallen stars. If one could obtain a piece the size of a dragon's eye, it could be sold for a sky-high price, not to mention the armor made from a small portion of the Starstone. But 33 million upper-grade spirit stones. It's too expensive. The middle-aged man's eyes turned red. The elder said slowly, "This shadow armor was supposed to be one of the most important items in this auction, but I have something urgent to do. That's why I'm selling it at a low price. Actually, my price is more than 35 million upper-grade spirit stones, which you can't afford." The middle-aged man was rendered speechless by the old man's words. That's right. A pseudo-extreme grade artifact fused with starstones. Even some life and death kings would be moved by it, not to mention them. Selling it for 33 million upper-grade spirit stones is definitely worth it. Murong Qingcheng, besides the glove, you're also lacking a pseudo-extreme grade armor. Why don't you buy it? I think this Skystar force field matches your dark force field quite well. It might even have an amplifying effect. Yi Chen transmitted his voice to Murong Qingcheng. Murong Qingcheng nodded. She pushed through the crowd and walked over, saying, "Boss, I want this shadow armor. Let me have a look." "You want it?" The elder looked at Murong Qingcheng in astonishment. Seeing that the other party was a very young and beautiful girl, his astonishment became even greater. Although 33 million upper-grade spirit stones were not his price, he also knew that if the price was set too high, he wouldn't be able to sell it in a short period of time. He had something urgent to do and couldn't afford to delay. Even so, 33 million was not a small number, but a huge number. Gemstone Island's auction house originally wanted to buy this shadow armor, but they were only willing to pay 30 million upper-grade spirit stones. Not bad. Murong Qingcheng's expression was calm. All right. The elder opened the crystal counter and took out the shadow armor, handing it over to Murong Qingcheng. Receiving the armor, Murong Qingcheng held it with her left hand and placed her right hand on it. A faint purple-black electric current flickered in her palm. Yi Chen's eyes turned sharp. He could clearly sense that there were two different force fields fusing together. However, because the time was too short, it was hard to notice without careful observation. "I'll take it." The corner of Murong Qingcheng's mouth curved. The star force field could indeed fuse with the dark force field and amplify it. For her, this shadow armor's value would increase by a few times. After all, her warrior force was not weak in the first place. With further amplification, it would be able to greatly affect the same level half-step kings, greatly increasing her strength. "Hehe, it's a pleasure working with you." The elder revealed a smile. Finally, he could leave. 33 million was a bit of a loss, but if he took it to the auction house, it would be around 35 to 40 million at most. After deducting the 5% auction fee, it would not be a big loss. Wait. Right at this moment, a black skinny elder walked out of the third floor. His footsteps were like lightning as he quickly walked over and reached out his hand to take the shadow armor from Murong Qingcheng's hand. Humph. Yi Chen coldly snorted and blocked in front of Murong Qingcheng, slapping away the elder's hand. "How dare you? The black skinny elder roared at Yi Chen. Chapter 803. This is the glorious exchanges. Don't tell me you plan on robbing others' treasures. Yi Chen stood there and released a frightening aura. Although his cultivation base was only mid-half-step king, he didn't fear anyone under life and death realm in terms of aura. Upon reaching half-step king realm, one's aura had already solidified and possessed a considerable destructive power. With Yi Chen at the center, the void suddenly shook and a transparent aura shockwave spread out. Even though everyone present was a half-step king, their faces couldn't help but change color. Some of the weaker ones couldn't help but take half a step back. Fortunately, the glorious exchanges were covered in restrictions and wouldn't collapse so easily. What a powerful aura! Among the crowd, a few young men and women were attracted by Yi Chen. They didn't expect Yi Chen's aura to be this powerful. Hehe, you dare to offend me in Gemstone Islands? The old man squinted his eyes and sent out an aura not inferior to Yi Chen's, clashing with Yi Chen's aura shockwave. Creaking sounds echoed in the void, as if the void couldn't bear the collision of the two's auras. There are only two strongest half-step kings in Gemstone Islands, and Darklight King is one of them. Rumor has it that even strongest half-step kings don't dare to face his Darklight palm arts head-on. Now that I've seen it, it's indeed powerful. Just his aura alone is enough to make people despair. Darklight King is a genuine strongest half-step king. I wonder where this kid comes from. He doesn't seem to know Darklight King, or else he wouldn't have clashed with him. Youngsters are all prideful. However, this kid's cultivation base isn't at the peak, probably mid-half-step king. But his aura is so powerful. There are many reasons why one's aura is powerful. This kid's aura contains a pitilessly sharp sword intent. He should have an advantage in sword intent that ordinary people can't reach. Yeah, makes sense. But he's still too impulsive. Clashing with a veteran strongest half-step king is simply asking for trouble. Everybody discussed in low voices. So, you are a strongest half-step king warrior. No wonder you are so arrogant. Cultivation wasn't everything. Although Darkbright King's cultivation base was a high-level half-step king, it didn't mean that he was a strongest half-step king. However, Yi Chen could sense his strength from his aura. Hearing the crowd's discussion, he immediately understood that this was yet another strongest half-step king. It's not too late to regret now. Otherwise, the Gemstone Islands will be your burial ground. The Darklight King sneered. His reputation in the Gemstone Islands was great. Coupled with his ruthless methods, there were not many who dared to oppose him. If this wasn't the glorious exchanges, he wouldn't be polite and would have directly killed Yi Chen, throwing him into the sea to feed the fishes. We don't know whose grave it will be, but for now, you better shut up. Yi Chen's eyes shone brightly like two peerless gems emitting sword light. Creak. The void trembled, and a boundless and frightening sword intent rushed toward the Darklight King. The Darklight King didn't expect that Yi Chen would still have strength to spare. He had no choice but to admit that the latter's sword will was higher than his martial will. In terms of aura, he couldn't gain the upper hand. With a muffled snort, the martial will in his sea of soul also rushed out, forming an invisible membrane in front of him. Pa! There was no soul-shaking explosion. The Darklight King's body swayed, and his left foot retreated half a step. On the other hand, Yi Chen didn't move an inch. The Darklight King's skinny face was a bit embarrassed. Although his aura and martial will weren't top-notch among the strongest half-step kings, they weren't weak either. Yet, he had lost to Yi Chen by half a step. This made his old face unsightly, as if he had been slapped in the face. You're courting death. The Darklight King squeezed out a few words with a cold expression. A layer of black radiance appeared on his right hand, and the temperature gradually rose. This was a sign that he was about to use Darklight palm arts. The Darklight King is about to take action. This is the glorious exchanges. Everybody was startled. I'll accompany you to the end. Yi Chen's figure didn't move, but the evil vanquishing sword at his waist began to ring. A sharp sword chi seeped out of the scabbard like a bone-scraping steel blade. What are you doing? Just as the two were about to take action, the manager of the glorious exchanges finally appeared. An embroidered-robed old man walked up the stairs, followed by two middle-aged men. All three were half-step kings, and the embroidered-robed old man had the highest cultivation base, a high-level half-step king. The one who spoke was precisely the embroidered-robed old man. Quickly walking over, the old man's face turned gloomy as he said, "This is the glorious exchanges, not a place for you to fight." "So, it's manager he." The black radiance on Darklight King's right hand dimmed. With his hand behind his back, he forced an unsightly smile. "Are you still not going to stop?" The embroidered-robed old man's sharp gaze glared at Yi Chen. "Which eye of yours saw that he was about to take action?" Murong Qingcheng felt that the embroidered-robed old man was too overbearing. Yi Chen hadn't even unsheathed his sword, so how could he take action? Instead, he seemed to be siding with the Darklight King. Clang! Yi Chen coldly glanced at the Darklight King, then glanced at the embroidered-robed old man. The evil vanquishing sword unsheathed by an inch on its own, then fiercely stabbed in. The sword cry was incomparably ear-piercing, as if someone was cutting glass with a sharp blade. The embroidered-robed old man's face turned ashen. Although Yi Chen didn't say anything, this action was undoubtedly a provocation, not taking him seriously at all. "What's going on?" The embroidered-robed old man turned his head and asked Darklight King. The Darklight King sneered, "This kid has no eyes, daring to compete with me over the treasure. Where would I put my old face? That's why I spoke out to teach him a lesson. I didn't expect him to be so extreme, wanting to take action against me. If it weren't for me having misgivings about your glorious exchanges, I would have killed him long ago. You're really lying through your teeth. I've already bought this shadow armor, but you wanted to snatch it. Does the glorious exchanges allow others to snatch other people's goods?" Murong Qingcheng's face turned frosty. Yi Chen indifferently said, "Everyone here can testify." "Testify? Who can testify for you?" The Darklight King sneered as his gaze swept over the crowd. Seeing the Darklight King's gaze sweeping over them, everyone shifted their gazes. Although some of them weren't cowards, they didn't want to offend the Darklight King for no reason. If they wanted to live long and well, some things were better left unattended if possible. Finally, the Darklight King's gaze fell on the old man selling the shadow armor. The old man didn't shift his gaze, and his expression didn't change as he said, "This old man is only selling artifacts. It belongs to whoever paid the spirit stones. It belongs to whoever paid the spirit stones. She hasn't paid yet." The Darklight King revealed a confident smile. "Indeed, but I've already agreed to sell it to her." The old man was in a hurry and didn't want to cause more trouble. Of course, he wouldn't lie to his conscience, so he could only tell the truth. "Don't worry, I'll pay however much she paid, plus 500,000 upper-grade spirit stones for you." The Darklight King had seen the shadow armor yesterday, but he didn't have that many upper-grade spirit stones on him at that time. He was short by 10 million. In order to obtain the armor, he had used his connections and borrowed a lot of upper-grade spirit stones. 2 hours ago, he had finally gathered 34 million upper-grade spirit stones. But what made him angry was that someone had beaten him to it and almost bought it. This was also the reason why he was so angry. "This doesn't seem appropriate." The old man was a bit embarrassed. "What's inappropriate? You haven't sold the armor yet. This doesn't violate the rules of glorious exchanges, does it?" The Darklight King looked at the old man. The old man glanced at Yi Chen and faintly nodded. "The exchange has its rules. As long as you don't violate them, it's fine. Since the Darklight King is willing to pay 500,000 upper-grade spirit stones, sell it to him." The old man was the chief steward of glorious exchanges, and his strength was close to a strongest half-step king. The Darklight King was famous in Gemstone Islands. Whether it was for public or private reasons, the old man didn't wish to have a conflict with the Darklight King. Moreover, Yi Chen's arrogant and unruly attitude from a moment ago had greatly dissatisfied him. Yi Chen sucked in a deep breath and said to Murong Qingcheng, "Murong, give him 34 million upper-grade spirit stones. Let's go." Hearing these words, Murong Qingcheng directly ignored the Darklight King and the rest and stored the armor. She then took out 3 low-grade storage rings and handed them over to the old man. Inside were 34 million upper-grade spirit stones, no more, no less. The Darklight King's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The old man checked the spirit stones in the 3 storage rings and nodded, just right. At the same time, he secretly transmitted to Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng, "I'm sorry, but this old man has an urgent matter and doesn't wish to provoke the Darklight King. I'll return the extra 1 million to you privately." Yi Chen replied, "I understand your difficulties. Don't return the 1 million upper-grade spirit stones. In any case, the armor is worth it." "Then, many thanks." The old man was somewhat grateful. "A treasure is a hot potato. Do you think you can leave?" The Darklight King had expended a great deal of effort to obtain the armor. Now that it had flown away, no matter how good his temperament was, he couldn't help but turn furious. Glorious exchanges is really bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Yi Chen looked at the elder in brocade robes mockingly. The old man's complexion turned increasingly unsightly as he shouted at the Darklight King, "Darklight King, don't be rash. This is not the outside world." Huff 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 huff. The Darklight King took a few deep breaths, but didn't make a move. He didn't have to give face to Steward He, but he had to give face to glorious exchanges. Killing people here was the same as breaking the rules. "Don't worry, as long as they're still in Gemstone Islands, the armor will be yours sooner or later. At that time, you won't even need to pay spirit stones." The old man transmitted a message to the Darklight King, then turned around and left with his people. "We're leaving as well." Yi Chen pulled Murong Qingcheng and left. When they reached the stairs, Yi Chen turned his head and said to the Darklight King, "I believe you won't give up on the armor. We'll be waiting for you." Words were useless. Some things required strength. If the Darklight King didn't come looking for them, it would be fine. If he did, he would be courting death. Chapter 804. Blaze. Darklight King's left hand tightly clenched into a fist, emitting a frightening heatwave. He rigidly stared at Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng's backs and inwardly said, "Gemstone Islands is not suitable for fighting. Once we're outside, I'll make you beg for death." Strongest half-step kings were revered existences wherever they went. They were even fewer in number than life and death kings. As a veteran strongest half-step king, even experts of the same level were apprehensive of him. After all, the longer one lived, the more ruthless one would become. This was something that newcomers lacked. Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng taking away the shadow armor in front of Darklight King was undoubtedly challenging his bottom line. Only heaven knew how important the armor was to him. A strongest half-step king paired with a pseudo-supreme grade defensive artifact was practically invincible under life and death realm. After Darklight King left, the crowd began to discuss in low voices. Thoroughly offending a strongest half-step king is too unwise. I'm afraid that not only will they not be able to keep the shadow armor, they will also suffer a calamity. The shadow armor is no small matter. Perhaps after equipping it, they can escape from Darklight King's hands. The speaker was a young man. He felt that it would be too much of a pity for a stunning woman like Murong Qingcheng to die at Darklight King's hands. A robust man beside him turned his head and said, "You've just arrived at Gemstone Islands, haven't you? If you've been here for a long time, you'll know that this is impossible. As a veteran strongest half-step king, Darklight King's strength is unfathomable. His Darklight palm arts contain fire and earth profounds, and moreover, they have been fused to a high degree. In terms of breaking through defenses, it's extremely frightening. Although 1 or 2 palms can't kill them, a few more palms can jolt them to death even with the shadow armor's protection, unless their Jin Yuan can operate the armor for a long time. Using a pseudo-supreme grade artifact required a large amount of Jin Yuan. Ordinary half-step kings simply couldn't use it more than a few times. Although pseudo-supreme grade defensive artifacts didn't have the same effect as offensive artifacts and could last longer, it could only delay death. After all, the offensive power of a strongest half-step king was incomparably powerful, and Darklight King's Darklight palm arts excelled at breaking through defenses. There will always be accidents. How could there be so many accidents? After leaving the glorious exchange, the two of them saw Wang Lan in a corner. Wang Lan came up to them and said, "Do you have any other orders?" After buying the shadow armor, Murong Qingcheng was in a good mood. She tossed 100 upper-grade spirit stones to the other party and said, "You should know which island is quieter and more suitable for living. Bring us there. Blue islands are usually quieter, and the deep blue island is the best. There are all kinds of architectural styles there, including luxurious courtyards, gardens, ancient castles, and even underground buildings. But only half-step kings have the right to enter the island." Wang Lan was very familiar with the affairs of the Gemstone Islands. "All right, bring us there." Yi Chen nodded. Wang Lan froze for a second, then said hurriedly, "Oh, over here." Yi Chen's words told her without a doubt that they were indeed half-step king warriors. Orchid Island did not allow people below half-step king realm to enter, but it would not be a problem if they brought someone in. After all, some half-step kings like to be served, so they could not forbid their servants from entering, right? Therefore, Wang Lan acted as a guide and followed the two to Orchid Island. There were almost no commercial buildings on Orchid Island, only residential areas. Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng chose a huge garden and settled in. The garden's fee was not high, only 1,000 upper-grade spirit stones per month. It seemed that they did not want to earn spirit stones from half-step kings, and only wanted them to stay in the Gemstone Islands and enjoy honorable treatment. With the shadow armor in hand, Murong Qingcheng returned to her room and prepared to erase the soul imprint on it. Yi Chen, on the other hand, enjoyed the scenery in the pavilion above the lake. As for Wang Lan, Yi Chen gave her an independent small courtyard, which was next door. Faintly, one could hear the sound of qi tearing through the air. She should be cultivating a martial art. The green lake was covered with water lilies, each of them with different colors swaying in the wind, looking elegant and beautiful. Besides a couple of pavilions connected to each other, there was also a stone bridge made of gray rocks. From Yi Chen's perspective, the afternoon sun and the stone bridge seemed to be on top of each other, looking very picturesque. Yi Chen was a person who did as he pleased, so he laid down in the pavilion and took a nap. After sleeping for an unknown amount of time, a yellow light streaked across the sky, as if a faintly discernible meteor was streaking across the sky. "Hey!" A soft exclamation sounded out as the yellow light curved in the direction of Yi Chen's garden, ultimately landing in the pavilion. Yi Chen opened his eyes and said with a smile, "You also live in the Gemstone Islands." It was none other than the yellow-robed woman who had parted ways in the mysterious Yin King's ruins. "Huang Mai, I still don't know your name." The yellow-robed woman sat on a stone chair with a smile and poured herself a cup of tea. Yi Chen sat in front of her and said, "Yi Chen. Good name. I heard that a man and a woman offended the Darklight King in Scarlet Island's glorious exchanges. Don't tell me it's the two of you." Huang Mai looked pensive. Yi Chen smiled, tacitly agreeing. "The Darklight King is very powerful. You'd better not be careless. If possible, it's best not to clash head-on. His Darklight palm arts are extremely powerful, and even my innate ability is somewhat unable to bear it. After so many years, his Darklight palm arts should have improved by another level." Yi Chen said, "So, you've exchanged blows with him?" Yi Chen wasn't too clear on how powerful a strongest half-step king was, but he was certain that they couldn't do anything to him. "Hey! You've entered half-step king realm?" Huang Mai faintly nodded and suddenly exclaimed. She hadn't paid much attention to Yi Chen's cultivation base. Just a moment ago, she unintentionally sized him up and discovered that Yi Chen was already a half-step king. Yi Chen was already unfathomable when he was at the peak of late sea of Soul Realm. How strong would he be after entering half-step king realm? Hee. Chuckling, Huang Mai said, "Seems like I was worrying for nothing." In truth, although Huang Mai felt that Yi Chen wasn't someone to be trifled with, if she went all out, she still had the confidence to defeat Yi Chen. After all, strongest half-step kings were not just for show. Moreover, she also had a pseudo-supreme grade artifact. A strongest half-step king combined with a pseudo-supreme grade artifact could erupt with an unimaginable battle strength. It should be known that pseudo-supreme grade artifacts were too high-end for half-step kings. Ordinary half-step kings couldn't use them more than a few times. On the other hand, the Zhen Yuan of strongest half-step kings was incomparably deep, allowing them to bring out the might of pseudo-supreme grade artifacts to a whole new level. However, now that Yi Chen was a half-step king, his strength was bound to increase by several folds. Darklight King would most likely be at a disadvantage. Of course, she didn't know that Yi Chen was different from others. Others only had more Zhen Yuan and purer Zhen Yuan, but Yi Chen had upgraded his Green Lotus sword arts to heaven grade. Moreover, he had unearthed a half-baked sword domain. Be it in group battles or one-on-one battles, he was a frightening existence. After chatting for a cup of tea's worth of time, Huang Mai left. A few days later, not only did Murong Qingcheng erase the soul imprint on the shadow armor, she also imprinted her own soul imprint on it. As a pseudo-supreme grade artifact, the shadow armor could be adjusted to a certain degree. For example, since Murong Qingcheng was a female, the shadow armor had become a lot slimmer, and her chest area had 2 protrusions. Wearing it on the body wouldn't cause any discomfort. In the courtyard, Yi Chen smiled. How about testing the heavenly star force field first? All right. Murong Qingcheng didn't use the dark force field. Instead, she poured her demonic power into the shadow armor and activated its heavenly star force field. Pop! A transparent ripple spread out. Standing in front of Murong Qingcheng, Yi Chen felt that the surreal space had become much more viscous, and any movement he made would be more strenuous. He couldn't do as he pleased. Along with Murong Qingcheng's manipulation of the heaven star force field, a repulsive force acted on Yi Chen's body like the power of heaven and earth. Deng! Deng! Yi Chen retreated several steps. Not bad. Just as Yi Chen finished his words, the repulsive force suddenly turned into a gravitational force, pulling him over. Without a choice, he had to increase his Zhen Yuan circulation to counteract this gravitational force. Now, let's try the effect of combining the heavenly star force field and the dark force field. The heavenly star force field's strength was quite impressive. Yi Chen estimated that even if he circulated his Zhen Yuan with all his might, he would still be affected. The closer he was to Murong Qingcheng, the greater the effect. It was no wonder that Darklight King would pay so much attention to it. After all, in a battle between experts, even a tiny gap was a gap. The surface of Murong Qingcheng's body flickered with purple-black electric currents. With a sizzling sound, the space suddenly shook, and the whole courtyard became blurry. Shoo! Caught off guard, Yi Chen was repelled by an extremely powerful repulsive force. Even if he circulated his Zhen Yuan with all his might, it would be useless. He was too close to Murong Qingcheng, and the density of his Zhen Yuan was almost the same as Murong Qingcheng's. Moreover, the latter's demonic power was purer than his. Too powerful. Yi Chen was directly pressed against the courtyard's wall. If not for Murong Qingcheng restraining the repulsive force, he would have been repelled even further. Moreover, he would have suffered some injuries, and wouldn't have been able to get close. After restraining the repulsive force, Murong Qingcheng suddenly changed the force field into gravity. Under the amplification of the heavenly star force field, the gravity of the dark force field was like a black hole. Yi Chen was directly sucked in, so fast that Yi Chen seemed to be passing through the void. Sword domain. At the crucial moment, Yi Chen released his sword domain, which interweaved with Murong Qingcheng's dark force field. Although the sword domain was not a force field, it possessed extremely powerful defensive and offensive abilities. After layers of weakening, the dark force field no longer had much effect on Yi Chen. Pop! The purple-black electric currents on Murong Qingcheng's body dissipated, and the force field retracted. Retracting his sword domain as well, Yi Chen praised, simply inconceivably powerful. Even a strongest half-step king can't get close to you, and can only attack from a distance. Force field had a huge effect on a whole object, but it would be much weaker against energy attacks, because the energy was only temporarily gathered together, and not a whole. Of course, it would still be somewhat weakened, and couldn't be ignored. Murong Qingcheng said, "This shadow armor has another use." "What use?" Whoosh! A dim light flickered, and Murong Qingcheng suddenly appeared in front of Yi Chen. Speed amplification. Yi Chen's eyes lit up. Murong Qingqing's speed was already very fast, and combined with the shadow armor, her speed was probably the fastest among half-step kings. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.